Officially starting
All
a
right.
different meeting, so yes.
All right, everyone, welcome again to the Planning Board meeting of November 7th, 2019. Before we get started, I want to take a moment to welcome our new member, Brenda Rappaport. We are excited to have her here. We're very pleased that we have someone in the community that has such great qualifications that can join us in the work that we do, and we're looking forward to having her here. So thank you for joining us, Brenda.
Thank you for having
And
me.
welcome.
Welcome.
All right, okay. All right, can we start off with announcements?
Sure.
Thank you.
I don't have my book,
Oh,
We gave it to the board.
sorry. Veterans Day is Monday. Town offices will be closed.
right.
Thanksgiving is
I
at the end of the
can
month.
get started on it. There's a
I think
Veterans
that's
Day
it.
ceremony at the town common on November 11th at 10 a.m. There will be a performance by the Burlington High School Marching Band there. If the weather, it does not cooperate, the ceremony will be held at the gym at Burlington High School. There will be a meeting of the short-term rental subcommittee on November 12th at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Annex Basement Meeting Room. There will be a meeting of the Zoning Bylaw Review Committee on November 13th at 6 p.m., also in the Town Hall Annex Basement Meeting Room. And in case you all didn't know this, Thanksgiving is coming, and that would be November 28th and 29th, and all town offices will be closed on that Thursday and Friday. Did anyone else have any other announcements? No. Okay. All right, then. We do have some continuances. Someone wants to help me out with those.
Motion to take item 6A out of order for discussion purposes.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, 7-0. Item 6A is a public hearing, application for approval of a minor engineering change, 84 Bedford Street, Crown Castle for Sprint is the applicant.
A motion to continue this matter to the planning board meeting of November 7th, 2019 is requested by the applicant's attorney in an email dated October 15th, 2019.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, 7-0.
Isn't today November 7th?
Motion to
Sorry,
take,
Yeah, sorry, not the 5th.
So,
21st.
so to the 21st.
21st, yes, sorry.
Do we need to revote?
motion to take item 7D and 7E together for and out of order for discussion purposes.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, 7-0. Item 7D is a continued public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to Section 4.3.2.6, outdoor storage of supplies and equipment incidental to permitted uses, subject to requirements for location, lighting, screening, fencing, cover, and safety precautions of the zoning bylaws, 376 Cambridge Street, The Granite Place Incorporated is the applicant. And item 7E is a continued discussion, application for approval of a minor engineering change, 376 Cambridge Street, The Granite Place Incorporated is the applicant.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to continue this matter to the planning board meeting of November 21st, 2019, as requested by the applicant's engineer in an email dated November 6, 2019.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, 7-0.
Madam Chair, make a motion to take item 7F out of order for discussion purposes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, 7-0. Item 7F is a continued public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to Section 4.3.2.22.2, solar energy system ground-mounted of the zoning bylaws, 50 Margaret Street Northeast, Solar Services doing business as Revolution is the applicant.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to continue this matter to the planning board meeting of November 21st, 2019, as requested by the applicant in an email dated November 4th, 2019.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's 7-0. Next, we have citizens' time. If there's anyone in the audience that is here to speak on a matter that is not on our agenda, please come forward. Seeing no one, we will move on. We've already done announcements. We do not have any legal notices or non-approvals, so we will be moving on to administrative matters. Item 6A is a discussion, application for approval of a minor engineering change, 99 South Bedford Street, Albany Molecular Research Incorporated is the applicant. Welcome. Please come forward. Have a seat at the table, and if you could just please state your names for the record.
Brian Grenier.
Sarah Eccleston.
Dan Marzo.
Tell us what you want to do.
Welcome. Could you give us a very brief overview of what you're looking for?
Sure. I'm with CRB Builders, and we're contracted with AMRI, Albany Molecular Research, to construct a fit-out at their facility at 99 South Bedford. And this particular minor engineering change is a request to connect a new 6-inch sanitary line from the northeast corner of that building to the tie-in of the main in South Bedford Street.
Okay. Do we have department reports?
Yes, so we have Inspector of Buildings favorable, and does not appear to be any comments. We have Fire Department favorable, again, doesn't seem to have any comments. Board of Health is favorable. Board of Health has no comments on the MEC application to add has no comments on the application to add a sewer line to them, so no comment on that. And Conservation Commission is favorable. And their comment, no conservation issues or concerns with the application, so.
Does the staff have anything?
Kristen?
AMRI, one of our life science companies in Burlington. Anyway, they are doing some utility work. It was flagged by the engineering department of like, hey, you guys approved this? And we looked at the plan and we said, no, it's really not a big deal. It's just all, kind of especially major utilities, sewer and water and stormwater, do need to be as reflected on the approved plan. They are doing some work that is different than the approved plan. So they're in front of us to ask for permission. We do have a condition just to make sure that, the plan incorporates all the recommendations of the engineering department, which are in here, but also their final kind of field review as to where connections are made. So we don't have any issue with this. It's just needed to update the plan, so it's a tried and true minor engineering change for utilities, so we're good.
Bernie, do you have any questions?
I don't, thank you.
Thank you. Bill?
No questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Nothing, Madam Chair, thank you.
All set?
All set.
Brenda? Thank you. All right, this is going to be easy, because I don't have any questions either.
We got a motion,
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the request for minor engineering change for property located at 99 South Bedford Street and add a new 6-inch sanitary line connection from the northeast corner of the site to the South Bedford Street tie-in as reflected on the red line site plan entitled Site Plan of Land of Burlington, Mass., prepared by Design Group Facility Solutions, dated June 13, 23, received October 24th, 2019, consisting of one sheet subject to the following revisions, terms, and conditions.
Second.
as printed.
It's been moved and seconded?
No, it has a colon, so I thought there might be more.
I guess not.
Oh, here.
Those are the conditions.
All those in
Oh,
favor?
previous.
Aye.
Okay.
Opposed? 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hope the rest of the night goes that smoothly.
Madam Chairman, I know we kind of breezed through citizens' time.
Yes.
But I think there might be someone that we were just chatting with that may have not heard
Oh, okay.
that, so I just
There
wanted
is
to
someone that would like to
revisit
speak for citizens' time. Please come forward.
So,
Welcome.
Welcome. Well, thank you. Thank you. So I apologize, we were speaking with Liz over here when we missed that call, so.
Kenneth Strong, 175 Bedford LLC.
Chris Jung, President of Mac Designer Hardware, the tenant of 175 Bedford Street. So we appreciate the time. We'll be very quick. I know we've got a lot of planned agenda items here. We were trying to just get a little bit of feedback based on updated information as we've been working through the recommendations of the planning board. So I recognize that we got the approval for our tenancy last time on October 16th when we were here. So I'm not asking to reopen right now. I'm looking for feedback on how we will in the future potentially get approved for the upstairs tenant as we're working through some of the construction right now. So I know the biggest thing is the walkway to get to the front of the building from the parking lot. I know that it was requested that we would put it against the mobile side of the driveway. We've been working very diligently. We tracked down the mobile station owner. I was actually trying to see if I could use a little bit of their property and move some of the landscaping there, and they've absolutely denied any type of encroachment onto their property whatsoever, period. There's absolutely nothing, and no surprise to anybody, I'm sure. So there are major concerns about us putting the walkway against that landscaping on their side of the property line. Now, I recognize last time we were here, we were requesting to put the walkway against the building, and there were concerns about a citizen or a pedestrian getting pinned against the building. And I know that we talked about vertical granite curbing, so we are asking if we were to pave, which is going to happen in the next week, for the site paving, we want to prep for which side of the walkway where we would put it when we do it for the tenant upstairs. So we're requesting kind of some feedback on if we were to put it against the building, would that cause any potential problems for a tenancy upstairs?
It's kind of hard to say if we don't know who the tenant is going to be and how much foot traffic it's going to create. That's my initial reaction. Staff, do you want to weigh in before I turn it over to the board?
So we've had some back and forth with this week as well, and I think it was just kind of really wanting to get resolution with this board. Is that why you're seeing them here tonight? I mean, I think our first proposal and hope would be, as you remember, main parking in the back, there's a door in the back.
Right.
There's a door in the front, there's handicapped in the front, there's only a few spaces though. And the access to the first floor tenant can be very well accessed from the back at that door. And the board had conditioned that it be like a main door, not just like a back door. And for the first tenant, I mean, our preference would be to try to have the applicant continue to explore internal connections to the second floor, so that back door can really be the primary door. And if that can be, as they explore the second floor, they may take over the second floor. They don't know. So, you know, what we had been talking about, the sidewalk issue really is an issue only with the second floor tenant if everybody needs to come up to the front. Because you can access the whole building from that side door. So, or the now like second main door. So I guess and when I would have said that, you know, we really encourage you to continue internal connections, so that sidewalk's not really an issue.
Right.
Certainly well light, you know, put lights, or if it's not well light, with the gas station next to you, I'm sure it's well lit. But I don't know, it's kind of I want to make sure if there's a pedestrian walkway that there's kind of hard edges that keep the pedestrians safe, whether it's on the building or on the other side. So if there's going to be a walkway on the building side, I'd want to try to make sure there was some sort of hard edge to protect the pedestrian. But it's such a tight and narrow area that it's tricky. What we had entertained at the last meeting was to, as mentioned, that when he does build, that this kind of come into play when that second tenant, when he comes back for the second tenant. So I'm not sure how much you're paving in anticipation of that second tenant and the anticipation of the sidewalk. I mean, it seems as if you just paved it at this point, it wouldn't be terribly problematic to try to get some sort of sidewalk in. I understand you want absolute resolution, but, you know, we want to try to make the safest area at the same time, keep a very narrow way as wide as possible. So, I mean, I think we're looking more toward you for a commitment for further explanation internally, and then to explore, when you get that second tenant, the kind of more harder edges to the walkway for pedestrian safety.
Yeah, so we talked about it. I think we're prepared to do the vertical granite curbing as per the recommendations. I think it's really just where is the placement of it, either on the mobile side or against the building. Everyone, my architect, my contractor, everyone is telling me against the building. will protect the building, and having the curb there should protect any vehicles from going up and hitting any pedestrians there. I understand the concerns about someone has an out to kind of jump into the trees if the car is coming.
Well, they just won't get crushed between a building and.
Yeah.
I understand. We're also planning to try to put another stairwell in the back of the building near the loading dock that goes directly to the second floor and only to the second floor.
I
So
would
we-
strongly encourage you to pursue that. It's going to be very hard for us to give you, at least for me, to give you permission, not knowing who that is. I mean, if you came back and you said, we're putting in a children's dance studio on the second floor, I'm not with you. You know, that isn't going to fly. It really is going to depend on what you put up there and what the foot traffic will be and who they'll be. So I would strongly encourage you to look into providing access to the second floor from the back. Other board members want to weigh in?
Just one comment. If you definitely want to put it against the building, and you don't know who your second floor tenant is going to be yet, I would say, based on what I'm hearing everybody say, I'm not talking for them, I'm talking for me, but based on what I'm hearing, is that you have to have some kind of a barrier that's going to keep the car from hitting the pedestrian, pinning him against the wall. And vertical granite curbing is not that barrier. So you, in my opinion, you need either a guardrail or a wall or something there. So if you want to go to that extreme in order to put it against the side, I would have a problem, as Barbara said, if there's a dance studio on the second floor, voting to allow that walkway to be used to get to the second floor unless there was an impenetrable, if that's a word, barrier there. You know, whether it be a very, very rugged guardrail or a wall or whatever, you know. So I think, I don't know, that's where I'd be coming from. If you need that decision right now, that maybe you're out.
Okay.
Anyone else have
Yeah.
anything further?
No, go
Yes.
ahead. I accede to the vice for now.
So I guess I need some clarification. So you're saying that you can't put it on the other side because,
So I attempted to try to convince the owner of that lot of the mobile station to encroach onto their land either 2 feet or 4 feet to help me get the walkway there. There's a monitoring well that is on our driveway that would interfere with the 4-foot walkway. So I'm gonna be very, very, very tight, and I think the curb will be right on top of the monitoring well. It was previously contaminated from the gasoline as a downgradient property status from probably 15 years ago. So that monitoring well would then either need to be moved, or I need to encroach on the mobile station, which they've said no. So there's a lot of very strange circumstances to this.
well, the
site.
monitoring well is, they need how much access for the monitoring well? We're talking distance.
It's a small little, like,
Yeah, it's only a small little thing. you know.
cover, but it goes all the way down into where the well actually is.
No, I get it, but you're saying, you're talking about it being where the curb is, you couldn't have a little jog in the curb, in the curb to be able to get that? Because
That is-
basically, you shouldn't have any, there's no more, it's gonna be the same width, no matter which side you put the walkway on, right? I mean, I get.
I agree, but the curb is, I believe, literally right on top of where
Yeah.
that well would be.
So what you'd have to do is just, it's only a little small area that you'd probably have to cut the curb out of there just to maintain the access to that,
But, I mean, I don't disagree, but we end up with it's supposed to be a 4-foot. Now, that piece either is narrower, or I go around it the other
4 foot.
way.
Well, the
and then
4 foot does not include a curb. Because you can't have a curb. I mean, the curb isn't gonna be part of the 4-foot walkway, right? You got a curb and then you got your walkway. So that curb, you could have a little cutout in the curb and maintain the same width of the walkway as you go through.
Would there be no curb on that spot? I'm not quite understanding.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's only a spot like this, so you
Yeah,
cut the
between
curb
curb,
around the access, right?
Access, curb.
It's still a lot more safe than it would be putting people up against a wall where they could be pinned by cars. A curb is not gonna stop, you've got overhang on cars that's longer than where the curb is. It almost reached the whole full 4 feet, the car itself would overhang if it went at somebody.
Okay, so I guess next question then is, if I'm prepping for a stairwell in the back, if I have a stairwell access to the second floor in the back, I don't need a walkway at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that
As
makes
long as you
sense.
have, you have full access into the building upstairs and downstairs from the back,
Yep.
Okay.
then there would
And then
be
the
no
handicap
reason.
spots would be in the front, which is the
Yep.
ADA.
And you have
system.
access from the front for those spots, right?
Yep.
Really, I wouldn't see there being a necessity for
I think that's
walkway.
probably your better option.
Okay. So I have prepped for a stairwell, but that's also the most expensive option, and I'm way over budget already. So we'll make things work, but I mean, I'm probably already about $150,000 over budget.
Ouch.
And this stairwell will cost me another $40,000. So I am in a very, very, very tight spot. But we appreciate the time.
But,
Thank you.
I mean, honestly, and I get that, and unfortunate, but it's gonna make the building a lot more marketable as well, you know what I mean? I think-
And that's the reason why I want to get the board input, because I can't really market it until I actually meet your requirements. That's
Probably a
why.
lot cheaper than an accident of someone getting pinned against the building, too.
Exactly right.
No, I totally understand that. I'm all about the safety as well, but it's just, I wanted that feedback, so I appreciate that feedback, so I can prep.
Okay, thank you.
for future.
Okay.
I let Joe go first, but I
Oh,
didn't give him
I'm
my
sorry.
time.
Paul, go ahead. More comments, go ahead.
No, I disagree with you. I probably walk more than everybody here put together, because I walk every day, and I walk sometimes along the Middlesex Turnpike, because you can park there, there's a nice walkway all the way up to Crosby Drive and so forth. And the cars are going 40, 50 miles an hour along there, it's a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit. But they're zooming along there, and the only thing there is like a 6-inch curb. And most cars won't go over a 6-inch curb, unless they absolutely have to, because that's gonna cost them half as much as your stairwell by the time they get through. So I have no problem really with the walkway along the side if there's a vertical granite curb there, because the cars, unless they're a hot rod, they're not gonna be burning rubber out of the back to get to the Middlesex Turnpike. They're gonna be out there and going 2, 3, 4 miles an hour. So I wouldn't have any problem with that. By the way, you're talking about the little blip and so forth. We put telephone poles in the middle of sidewalks here. So we
We don't
no-
do that
no-
anymore.
no problem with that.
Thank you, Paul.
Madam Chair, I would say that I was behind my son the other day and going down the end of the street down on Cambridge Street, and he was going a couple miles an hour and jumped the curb. I was right behind him, and I had to replace a tire. So it's possible at low speed to jump the curb, but they got an inexperienced driver a couple
Or
months.
someone
but
hits the
it-
gas instead, when they need to hit the
So,
brake.
Is he driving a
happens.
walkway?
He was not. It's a pretty cheap,
And he's at
beater.
home saying, I can't believe my dad is
I was
telling
right behind him.
everybody
He didn't know
that
it
I
though,
did
so that's
that.
the thing.
All right, I
Did
hope
he give you a
that,
good story?
Oh, beautiful story.
thank you.
And very last thing was, I know there was a request to do plantings between our property and the Burlington Motors. That fence that's there is actually our property line. So where you were requesting us to plant is actually state highway property. And my site engineer said I'm not allowed to do that without getting state highway approval to change their plan. their
That's in the
highway.
front on the right?
Yes. So.
All
I
right,
just wanted to give the update of, that's the latest information I have.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, so we are moving on to matters of appointment. Item 7A is a public hearing, application for approval of a site plan, 61 Center Street. The town of Burlington is the applicant. Hello and welcome, and although we know who you are, please state your names for the record.
Tom Hayes, I'm the town engineer.
Paul Sagamino, Town Administrator.
Thank you.
And just for us, we have re-advertised this, so all members of the seated, we re-advertise it for this meeting, so all members seated can weigh in.
Great. All right.
So we have a presentation for you all. The Jeff Alberti from Weston and Sampson, who gave you the presentation on DPW facility, kind of set the standards, so I'm hoping we can meet expectation. So here we are, 61 Center Street. This is the Human Services Building. We want to build a parking lot, and we've been here, I think we've been here a few times. So we had some joint meetings recently, and we took everyone's input, and we would like to present the plan as we feel kind of reflects what we heard in different meetings. So here's the town of Burlington. Our site is right here, which is south of the municipal center. So here is the site highlighted, Center Street here, with the Briarwood Sleeper neighborhood to our north, Winter Street over here to the east. We can zoom in a little bit more, and this is our site. Our Google view. You can see here's the Human Services building. You have the horseshoe coming in, the fields out back. This is the Grandview Farm right there, and here's the Grandview Senior Housing. So we'll zoom in just a hair more. Before we go forward, we want to talk about the past a little bit. How did we get here? So this parking at the site has always been a problem. 2005, the town administrator put together a committee to evaluate different options. So we came up with 4 options. One of them being taking some fields out of play. That was discounted off the get-go. We had the minimal would be do some striping and some changes in circulation. That was implemented, gained a few spaces. The next step was down here on the south side of the site to expand this parking. That was done in 2009. And then in 2017, with the renovation of the facility wrapping up, it was time to go for our option 3, which is to build out right here in front of the property. So we came to the planning board, a lot of pushback because we were taking a lot of green space out of the out of the front of the property. So we had a couple joint meetings. We all walked the site, looked at different options, and we reduced the size of the project. And we also took more feedback, safety issues that people brought up in the back lot, reductions in pavement and whatnot. But what I'll do is I'm going to rotate this. We can drop our plan in. So this is our plan set, which is should be in your package. This is the overall site. And there is 2 distinct parts of this project. There's all the construction here in the front. I'll go through that first, and then we have some improvements in the back. So this is the way it looks now. This the green area here, well, it looks a lot better on the computer, but here's our driveway going around. So what we are doing is, first off, we're going to remove and seal up this entranceway. So we're going to remove all this pavement here, grass it over. This area, these brown areas in here, we have to prep them for pavement. So we'll remove the grass, and then we'll construct the parking lot. So this is the parking lot here as it looks striped. One way going through, all angle parking. What we're going to do is, part of the major improvement is one entrance, in and out. So it's a lot safer. It is, all this traffic that used to drive by the building here now will be through the one entrance. So if you're going to the Grandview Farm, you go right here. If you go into the senior housing here, and if you go into the human services, so all that traffic is pulled away from the building, a lot safer. We're adding pedestrian accommodations in all these locations. We have crosswalks and sidewalks, so we can move people through the site, in a safer manner. They'll all be HP ramps, so it's all ADA compliant. What else are we doing? We're doing lighting, so we're going to add some lighting along the driveway, within the parking lot. Fully compliant stormwater system, so we're going to add deep sump catch basins, storm scepter, and then finally, we're going to infill these areas here with maple trees. So it'll be consistent. The front will be all maple trees, it'll be all grassed over, it'll be very consistent throughout the site. Let's move to the back of the parking lot back here. So what we're doing here is, this is the existing parking lot, and we're going to strip all this pavement away, and then we're going to grass it. So twofold. First, we cut down on our impervious area, and then we can also reduce the aisle width. Aisle width in there is 30 plus feet. People zoom down that by reducing the aisle width. We're going to slow people down. We also people will be able to cross a lot quicker. Instead of walking across all that pavement, they can walk a little quicker across the parking lot. We're going to install a raised island on the corner. And the reason we're doing that is the folks who exit the office, the recreation office, a lot of times they walk out the back of the building and someone's cutting that corner. So to prevent them from cutting the corner, we're going to put the island there. They'll have to drive around. There'll be a lot more separation between the pedestrians and the cars. And finally, we're doing some additional lighting in the parking lot, because it's a little sparse right now in lighting, so we'll brighten it up over there. So these are kind of the statistics. Parking-wise, we, 143 parking spaces. We'll gain 20. We're going to maintain the existing 14 HP spots. Pedestrians, we have all these pedestrian accommodations, sidewalks, crosswalks, the island, and then a reduced aisle width. And then finally, stormwater. We're going to improve the quality of the stormwater with a compliance system, and also we're reducing the pavement, the impervious pavement, by 420 square feet, essentially balancing what we have out there now.
Can you stop and go back a slide, please?
Mhm. So a couple questions came up. This is a concept plan from 2005, one of the things the committee evaluated. So the question came up, can you stripe that ring road, stripe that horseshoe? We can, pretty much zero cost. We'll gain 10 spaces. Can you expand that ring road and get parking on both sides? We can get 17 spaces in there. The only issue is we're going to gain 2,550 square feet of impervious, and that's not including any sidewalks. So that would, probably would go over 3,000 square feet. The proposed, what we're proposing tonight is less impervious. So by just expanding the existing ring road, you don't take advantage of any of those safety issues of moving the traffic away from the front of the building. And you have a more impervious area to deal with, and then into a more extensive stormwater management system. So the other thing we were asked to look at is the bump out. There's a little bump out right here. That is a flat area. It could be paved over without encroaching on the fields. So let's take a look at that. This is the area here. Can we do anything with it? Yeah, we could pave that, low cost. We'd take these spaces here, we'd move them over there, and then we'd build out 3 spaces. Again, it's a lot of impervious, and we only gain 3 spaces. You have all this area that's drive aisle, that's kind of just pavement. It's also an awkward little bump out, trying to maneuver in there and back out of there. It's awkward. So what else can we do? Let's take that same bump out, we'll take a smaller area, and we'll take these 3 spaces, and we'll move them that way. And then we can gain 2 spaces, same thing. We have a little less impervious, 1,600 square feet. Again, it's awkward maneuvering in and out of space like that. So that's, I wouldn't recommend doing, either of those options. And that is it. You can field any questions you have.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to add anything, Mr.
Yeah,
Sagarino?
I just wanted to thank the members. I remember the last meeting we had, specifically because it was such a beautiful day, and it was so well attended, and I think the Bruins were playing in the Stanley Cup Final, so it really was amazing how many people turned out on that night, and I know we had plenty of Board of Selectmen members there. Many of you were there, if not almost all of you that were on the board at the time. We also had Ms. Nash and Ms. Walden were there. It was a very well attended meeting, and we tried to take in as many suggestions as we could and try to implement them into the plan, and this is what we came up with, so.
Okay, thank you. Kristen, did you want to weigh in?
So, a little bit. I think that we've had a lot of discussion, and I'd really like to, excuse me, hear from the board members. But we were asked initially to go through, just the question of how much parking is out there, how much do we need, what's the zoning analysis. We did go through that analysis initially with the first proposal that had, how many were in the first proposal? 54? So the first proposal with 54 spaces, this is 20 new spaces, because you lose 3 for the safety improvements in the back. So 20 new spaces, the last one was 54. We did do a zoning analysis, including all of the buildings within this campus, the Human Services Building, as well as the Grandview Conference Center. So at full capacity of all those spaces, they are underparked via zoning. Especially with the, if there is a function at the, what am I thinking of? The Grandview Hall. So I was just trying to find the word for the hall. And then we did that analysis without even using the field space. And Brendan Egan had given us some numbers for the field space. So there are a lot of activities, just as you don't plan for Christmas, you don't plan for everything. But with putting the numbers all in place, and I apologize, I didn't print it out for tonight, but I know that we were definitely, I think it was full in place, the activities, we were more than 40 or more spaces for compliance. Being as said, we've talked about, how should we balance the uses? I had a conversation with Bob Mercier on Monday about this, just to kind of remind myself of the history of the site and the Grandview. And he was kind of joking. He said, well, when we first did this, we went to town meeting and said we need all this money to renovate Grandview, and it's going to be so great, and it's going to be the community house of the town, and everyone's going to use it, and say, no one's going to rent Grandview, so, and there was a small area for parking where they took down the Grandview barn. But I think it's a good story in terms of, Grandview's really used. I asked Paul and Sandy for some numbers, and it's impressive how many rentals from community groups, from residents, if people have their graduation party, their bridal showers, their weddings there, their high school reunions. So anyway, it's just Burlington doesn't really have a community house. This has become the community house. And I wanted to add to that, whether, however we want this design to go, I think the concept that we've been talking about originally of, they'll just plan for Grandview not to be used if other things are happening. In hearing the stories of how it's really being used, I kind of just want to throw out there that I think it's something we do want to embrace, and we know it's underparked. And as much as we can try to manage the parking, I think we also want to manage the options for residents to use all the buildings as well as we can. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. Overall, I think I appreciate the site walk we did. It was very interesting, and the first one was good, the second one was great. And I appreciate Tom Hayes going through the options that we had discussed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going to turn this over to the board. First of all, great presentation.
Thank you.
Very professional, very well done. There's a lot that I like about this new plan, especially closing off that second entrance and adding the green space there. And I especially like narrowing the drive aisle in the back and adding green space there as well. When we've met and looked at this many times, as you know, the question remains for me and for other board members as to how much parking we really need there. And can you pull up the, what you're proposing for the front with the two lanes of angled parking? Thank you. Overall, I think this looks really good. One of the things that we would like to consider, because we are not sure how much parking you actually need, is whether or not there's a way that we could take this in phases. And with the front part of that parking, I think there's 15 spaces there.
Mm-hmm.
If you could not build out those 8 spaces right against the building and instead put some grass there and so that it's trees perhaps to make it attractive, so when people come around the corner, they would park on their left, the building would be to their right. You would only get 13 spaces instead of 20. However, we could test it out that way, and in the future, if you needed more, could possibly build out the other 8. It would therefore make it more attractive from the street, because the parking wouldn't go right up to the building. You'd have an attractive grass area in the front there with some landscaping. And I know that our DPW and Rec Department do a great job with landscaping. I know they'd make it look really pretty. And it would still give you those additional 13 spaces. We have been asking from the start of this project explain to us how much parking you need. And the answer we keep getting is as much as we can get. And we would never accept that answer from any applicant that came before us that wasn't the town. We want applicants to explain to us how many spaces they need and why. And we've never been able to get to that in this project. We have anecdotal evidence that suggests we really don't have that much of a parking problem there. We have a problem in that people don't have parking spaces where they want them, that there are parking spaces available, but not necessarily right where they want them. So we'd like you to consider that, and it's something I'd like the board to consider. But before we move on, that's just my suggestion. I'd like to hear from the rest of the board. I'm only one member. So I don't want to throw it down to Brenda because that's not fair on her first night. So I'm going to start you off again, Ernie.
Sure. No problem. Well, thank you for the presentation. Very good. Thank you for your patience and time on this project. I think we've been looking at it for 3 years, maybe, somewhere around there.
Probably at least.
Okay. I had a few questions. I like it the way it looks, and I like the angled parking out front, because a good portion of this parking is used by seniors, such as myself. And I have noticed, the older I get, the less likely I want to attempt more difficult maneuvers like parallel parking or whatever. I know we had discussed that in front of the building. So I like the way it is, and I like the fact, actually, that when you come in, is, a question, Paul, is the side door at COA open now or not? Do you know?
I believe on big events.
Okay, so when there's a big
Murray wing.
senior event, it'll be open? Okay.
Yes.
All right, that
Not on
was,
a daily basis? Oh, it is open on a daily basis.
it is?
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
That was my question. And the reason for me asking that is because if I'm going to use the facilities at the senior center, whether it's the card room or the knitting thing or whatever it is, or even the, whatever.
The
then
exercise.
The exercise. No, I wouldn't use that, Paul. Sorry. When you drive in, you actually drive around the building, and if there are no parking spaces on the side where you usually like to park, because that's close to the door and everybody tries to get
Yeah,
there,
of course.
you keep going and there are more parking spaces out front. So I think in practicality and in the usefulness, that works. I'm glad, I know when we were out there, we were talking about people going too fast out back, so the bump out, that island there at the corner is going to help people when they turn, they have to slow down. And the fact that it's narrower, I think that will definitely help. I kind of like it. Comparing it to what we started with way back when, it's better. I think it incorporates some of the ideas of all the different people. And I know I was here when the tavern was finally permitted. And I can remember hearing somebody say, or maybe us, the board, say that, yeah, the overflow parking from the tavern can end up into the Kelly Murray Center, or the Human Services Building. And obviously nobody, I guess everybody, as Kristen said, might have thought, it's probably not going to get used that much anyways. But now, if there's something going on in Kelly Murray, I see people parking in front of the police station. I see, all sorts of things. One thing, and I neglected to mention it in all the talking that we did before, is that somebody approached me about a month ago and said, I called for an Uber ride from, and this was an older person, I won't say elderly, older person, and they couldn't find the building. So I don't know if we can get a wayfinding sign out front somewhere in the area of the trees that you could see from the road. And I don't know how difficult it would be to light it with gooseneck lighting or whatever. I don't know what the electrical situation is out there, but if that's something I'd like to see you consider. Other than that, I'm set.
Thank you, Ernie. Bill?
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair. I as well would like to thank particularly Mr. Hayes on the design here, taking all that consideration into effect. And I know some of the planning board members that have been here for a little while know that I'm a big fan of taking things a step at a time if we can. I think we try to do that at the Dandelion Green Plaza unsuccessfully to see if it would work before we went all the way through at the back entrance. But I think a great idea, I hadn't even thought of, to say, let's just do one portion of that and see how it goes. One question, I know that when we had that meeting, I was talking to one of the residents there about the Beeline bus stop, right, where that was going to be and how that works. That's still going to be at the front part of it?
Yes.
Okay,
You have this, this cutout right here at the very end, that's for the bus pickup drop-off.
okay.
You could do that, the green could go where it's marked for parking,
Yep.
and you could still have a dip in for the bus.
Yep, okay, and I'd like to hear from the residents that, I know that we talked at the site walk, one of the residents there was indicating to me that that was important. The other thing, looking at this, would be landscaping, like low landscaping along the edge of the parking. So when you look from the street, you can look through the trees and you see the parking lot, but if you could put maybe kind of a line of shrubbery right there, we have the lights, we have those 3 lights up there, like right in front of the edge of the parking lot to kind of buffer the parking lot there. If you kind of think of where would be similar, maybe the parking lot at Archer, that we required them to put landscaping right before the parking lot to buffer that parking lot. I did talk to a lot of people in between from when we had that site walk to where, to now, to just people that I'd say, so what do you think about the parking there? One person I didn't know that had worked there, I forgot she had worked there. We were sitting around having a few drinks at their pool during the summer. I said, she goes, oh, I work at town. I said, oh, yeah, how's the parking there, by the way, at the rec center? And she goes, yeah, no problem. I go, well, thanks. So that's kind of something that wasn't even, wasn't brought up. So she doesn't seem to have a problem. She probably gets there early in the morning, so it's not a problem. When I go there, my 10:30, 11 o'clock meetings I have every month for the Club 50, it's with that sit-down exercising, it's pretty packed there, it's kind of tight, but you get some spots. But again, if you have the combination, the Grandview and that's where you get into trouble. And one person I did talk to, of all the people I said, yeah, there is a parking problem, was my mother. She said, yeah, there is. I said, oh, there is, tell me about it. She goes, yeah, when they have the Grandview events at the same time. So I said, that's acknowledged. So I think that's, although you say you really want to use it, I think here, without paving everything over, I think you go back and to say you really got to schedule that up, like, where I do in industry, you have conference rooms. You don't schedule them on top of each other. You have conference rooms you set up, and then you set it up that way so they don't conflict. So there's ways to do it. Mostly you think the Grandview will be at night, but if it's during the day, then you got to work with what's going on there. I think that's all I had. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mike?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had a question for Kristen. Did you say when there are events at the Grandview that the 40 spaces, that 40 number, we were 40 short or 40 over?
Oh, short.
Short, okay.
And again, it's around there. I don't
Okay.
remember what the analysis was.
Just want to thank Tom and everyone for all the hard work that you've done. I know this has been going around and around for a long time. And out of all the plans I've seen for this, I like this one the best. I think you guys did a great job on it, and I think out of all the plans I've seen, this is the best one, and I'm fully in support of it, so fully on board. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Joe?
Yep.
We don't have department reports on this, do we?
They're actually,
They're probably
they're all
old.
from.
They're old.
Yeah, they're all
Okay.
from prior meetings and whatnot, so. Again, I want to thank Tom. Tom, we spent some time today, went over some, this plan and some other ones, and my thoughts on this, we had discussed, the concern is, even if we were to scale this down, we don't know if the 10, you need to schedule a project, and you can't piecemeal the project, and I get that. So, the discussion that took place earlier was if we prefer this traffic flow better, I think what we want to do initially is maybe with some striping, we can determine whether 10 spots is going to be sufficient. And there's a zero cost to the striping. So we were saying, well, why don't we stripe it, see if the 10 spots is sufficient. If it is, then, if we decide that the traffic flow is better this way, it's safer this way, we discussed a couple of speed humps and things like that, and some stop signs because, my understanding was that some feedback was saying that some people were traveling at too high rate of speed going around a corner and going into the back area in there. And, really the way to fix that would be to put some speed humps and put some stop signs back there and, try to make these people slow down and stop and yield to pedestrian traffic. So if we have the speed humps and things, that would help with that. If the 10 spots, by striping, the 10 spots seem to be sufficient, this plan with the traffic flow, if we agree that that's a better traffic flow, if we scaled it down, and again, I think Barbara had said, was the discussion we had, was, that the 7 spots or whatnot against the building, we made that into green space and moved the angled parking towards the, because if we pick up a lot of space, if we eliminate the spaces against there, we put green space and then move the angled parking a little bit closer to the building. And then we landscaped all in front of those vehicles and put trees and more green in the front. I think that's probably would be a good compromise, because if we didn't have that angled parking and we went with what our preference would have been, which would have been all parallel around the loop, we're gonna be looking at cars anyway. So, we either look at them around the hoop or we look at one row of them in there and additional green space. So I think we're getting close. I think, we were world apart before, and I think we're getting a lot closer now. And I know I've probably seen Mr. Sagarino more in the short period of time he's been in there than I've seen any other town administrators. We've had more meetings and things like that, and I know you're putting a lot of time into it, and Tom, I know you have as well, but, or have put a lot of time into it, but I think we need to determine whether the 10, because we really haven't gotten the answer to that question, which is how many spots is gonna be sufficient. And again, I know, it's, the discussion has come here, when there is a function at the Grandview and the human services is at full capacity is when we seem to be having the issue. And I can't remember if it was my basketball time on Monday or if it was Tuesday when I went to visit my mother over there. It was one of those days, there was a major function going on at Grandview, and it was full capacity in the Human Services building. And as I approached the parking, it looked like it was full, but as I drove around, I saw at least 5 spots, and I also saw people pulling out on a regular basis. So spots were opening up. So, you come to the realization that if there's not a spot when you first get there, if you wait a couple of minutes, somebody will be pulling out at one point in time. So, again, I think it was at the fullest capacity it probably could be, and there were spots. So again, I know initially they were looking for 50-some-odd spots. I think that's excessive. If we could determine through the use of some striping whether 10 is going to be sufficient, this plan is not bad, especially if you really feel strongly that the traffic pattern is going to be a safer pattern. And that's a big piece of it. I mean, if it's, because this does, if it's done the right way, does create some additional green space in the front. And if we use that along with the landscaping, I think it could be an aesthetically pleasing project as well. So that's kind of my thought, but I think before we do anything, we need to have a test period of time to determine whether the 10 spots is going to be sufficient. And I think you could do that without any expenditures at all by just striping and seeing. The other piece of it, I know we also picked up next to the police station there, which is a very quick, short walking distance to the Grandview. They picked up a few spots of parallel parking on the street as well. And I know I travel past there multiple times a day, and I don't think I've ever seen all of those spots filled. So, if there's something at the Grandview, those probably do get filled, but that's a little bit of overflow that we hadn't counted on previously before those were created. And I think that's pretty good. That was a good idea, whoever striped those spots in there. But I guess those are my thoughts. I really want to get a better grip on how many spots were needed, if that's enough.
Barbara, can I ask you a question?
Of course.
So what you're suggesting is to pave the whole thing and only stripe part of it, and then if the paving, or not?
No, because when we had sat down with Tom earlier, we could probably stripe without any pavement being done now. We could stripe those spots to see if that was going to be sufficient, and then make our permanent move once we've determined that.
Yeah, but
Because they
the
can't
option,
pave now,
Stripe the-
it's too late to do it now
back in
anyway.
'05, we had an option to, if you look on this ring road here, was to stripe through parallel spaces along this road.
Parallel spaces?
So you'd, yeah, we have,
Parallel.
I'm not in favor of it.
Yeah,
I am.
okay,
As-
all right.
we
it's-
can
I
test,
think
well, between,
as a
just
test
to see
only,
for the
to see if the number of spaces were appropriate, because what Tom was telling us is that the construction would not start on this now. It would not start until
anyways,
2020. The striping could be done very quickly, and then you could have a period of, I don't know, 8 months, 10 months, whatever, to determine if that's the right number. And then if we find that it is, then the plan that I had discussed.
And if you're
we can do,
concerned-
and you can still keep
Right.
those 8 in reserve. If we determine that's not enough, maybe we have to do the 8 right away.
And in the meantime, I mean, if you're concerned about those being, people not being able to pull into them, just have the employees use those spots
Yeah,
in the
that's
morning.
up-
Let the
that's up,
employees
sure.
pull into those spots,
I understand.
leave the rest of the parking for the rest, you know.
So I don't think.
So until we can determine whether we're going to be sufficient with the 10 spots. I
Probably
mean,
spoke too quick.
Well,
Sorry.
just,
Thank you, Joe.
just, it
No,
it
you
was
get it.
test mode only, not that that would be the final solution.
I got it now. Yep.
All right, thanks. Paul?
I'm the member that's known for being brief. That's an inside joke. I just want to say, what a demonstration that said, somebody recently who's moved to Burlington recently said to me, how does this town work? She says, you don't have a mayor, and you got all these boards. I said, well, it is amazing the way all the boards in town work together. I said, it's as smooth as can be. And this is a perfect example. And in your response to us, when you came with the plan and we said, so thank you very much. That's my way of saying thank you. The only thing I'll say is this. I am the planning board representative on recreation, and I hadn't thought of that little corner spot to make the cars go around, but kids open the doors in that back building, just come running out, and I suggested, our director is here sitting up back, I suggested a speed bump. I said, I want a speed bump that's big enough to practically stop the traffic so that you don't have somebody going around the corner looking at their iPhone and some kids running out of the door. And he said, well, that might be a good idea, but the plows and so forth and the bumps. But I really, if had my druthers, that's the only thing I would change, is to put a speed bump there to really slow the traffic around when it's going around. People might not like it, but, thank you.
I also suggested that maybe the director of recreation park off-site.
Good walk and get some steps in.
Thank you, Paul. Brenda, do you have any questions?
I don't have anything additional to add. I do like the plan.
Can you push the microphone closer to you? Yeah, thanks.
I do like the plan to mirror a couple of things that were said. If you go back to that, the first slide where the loop is, where the lights are, I would like to see some landscaping there. But, if there is a way, again, mirroring what has already been said, that we can do a test, kind of a test run with nominal or minimal expense, I would suggest that would be our first step. Thank you.
So I had, yes, just 1 minute. I had a question. It's actually something that Joe had mentioned earlier today. The little triangle that you had put in the back to slow people down. We talked about also a speed hump and a stop sign. Why do we have it a triangle and not a square? Because the triangle might allow people to whip around that corner a little faster than if it were a square. What's the reason for that?
well, if you square this off, it's more likely to hit on a corner. I think maybe when we refine the design, this actually might be an arc, more of a radius on that than just a
Okay.
triangle.
I want to make it so that people can't cut that corner. So How you determine is the best way to do that, I leave up to you, but I'd like that to be of primary importance.
And there's been a request for speed bumps, and speed bumps, they wreak havoc plowing on the trucks.
But speed humps, you said we could do.
Well, speed humps are just engineering design, so they're more appropriate for an application like this.
Okay, thank you.
Which I could buy into.
Thank you. Okay, I see there was a member of the audience that would like to speak. A couple of them, please come forward.
So for the record, Kevin Sullivan, Chairman of the Rec Commission, and I would be in favor of the 20 spots. I wouldn't want to see it cut back. Years ago, when they did Grandview Farms, the apartments, the condos, we were assured that we would get more parking in the future. Now that's, what, 10, 15 years ago?
That's the future.
Now we're being encroached on by Grandview Tavern, and you're only going to give us 13 spots. It's not helping us. You know, I've come to the meetings, I've watched the meetings. 59 spots was exciting for us. You know, we do a lot of programs at the on the Common. People need places to park. They used to park at Building 19. They're not going to be able to park there anymore. There's only so much parking at the town hall. People park on the streets, otherwise, in front of houses. I wouldn't want you to cut this back. You know, they've come up, you wanted more green space at the last meeting, and they've given you an incredible amount of green space, and now we're only getting 20 spots. It's, from the Rec Commission's view, cutting it to 13 is not acceptable.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anybody out there that would like to speak?
Thank you. Brendan Egan, Director of Parks and Recreation. So I'm 100% in favor of the plan. I know it's been knocked back. I know there's been questions on what is the actual number of spaces needed. I think that's a number that fluctuates because of the amount of programming that goes on in the building. Council on Aging, if they have programming going on that brings in residents, participants, we have constant programming going on. There are lulls during the day, and I think lunch hour basketball, that 12 to 2 time frame, I know Mr. Mpemba comes up and participates in that activity.
He's good, right?
I know he comes up and participates in that activity. Of course he's good. Of course he's good. One of the best Joes up there. So we have a number of them. So, but I don't think there's ever a hard number for that. And then I think what you do by saying, well, you know, we've been working with the Selectman's office. They call us when there's an event scheduled or anticipated rental for the Grandview Farm Tavern. But it's like you're limiting what can be done in limiting growth in programming and limiting the use of a tavern, which I think the idea was that we draw people in to use it. This week, every day this week so far, I know, Joe, you had mentioned you weren't sure which day, but every day there's been something at the Grandview, and parking has been difficult. The administrative staff in our department parks on the softball field side, usually 10 or 15 spots up on the backside, so we can leave the spots up towards the front for our customers and for the residents. That back door, I love the safety feature, the little island there. The back door is being used more and more by seniors since the building has been done over. They are using the front glass entrance, but we're seeing more and more come through the back entrance as well. I love the traffic pattern one way around, and the idea of speed humps. Some call them speed bumps, some call them humps, but I know the hump is the larger one. Is a great idea to slow traffic down. And it's not only participants or residents coming to visit the building, maybe some staff are guilty of using the back stretch as a way to pick up some speed, getting through the parking lot, trying to find a spot. So I like the plan. I like the idea of 20 spots in the front. From a cost standpoint, I'm sure it's more expensive to do, 13 across the front and then go back and do the 7. I think on the front, there is still a grass strip between the building. There'll be a sidewalk, I believe, in front of those parking spots that are in front of the building. So there would still be green space. You wouldn't be, you know, completely void of green space. So it would be a sidewalk and then some green space before the building. I like the idea on the side that faces the road of having some kind of landscaping to kind of, you know,
Soften.
camouflage the parking area. But with beautiful landscaping comes maintenance, of course, so as long as it's low maintenance landscaping, that would be great. I think they've done a great job with the plan. I think closing up the driveway gives you more green space. I think closing the back, you know, that width of that back parking aisle or drive aisle is also a great idea. So I'm in favor of this plan. Again, there's not a hard number of how many spots. I think these spots, some days, maybe half full, other days would be completely full, and I think you can still operate the Grandview Farm and the Human Service Building at full capacity and have enough spots.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Brendan.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on this matter? Yes, Mrs. Nash? Thank you.
Mildred Nash, town meeting member, Precinct 3, and probably a 30-year member of the Beeline Committee and a member of the current Sidewalk Committee. And I would like to begin by saying that I think this new plan, which adds additional green space, is really an indication of what kind of officials we have who are cooperating with you, and I'm really grateful for that. And I have to tell you that Tom Hayes goes back to when I was working on bicycles, and he was so helpful on that as well. And I do have to say the bike paths are one of the unmentioned parts of this solution, if you will, because sometimes when I get over to Market Basket, I find trouble parking my bike. We'll be back to you on that. But because the commercial bikes that are in some of the industrial parks and all mean that there are different ways we need to go about solving problems. And I think here, as some of you have said, you know, even these plans could be tweaked, but I think the concerns are interlocked, as are solutions. And I see two concerns. The first is the parking, which, and by the way, I didn't say that I'm also grateful for you, whom I have bothered more than I bothered any previous town administrator. And he's always been there and has been at all of the meetings. I had you second, but my notes are a little hard to read. Okay, but anyhow, the first concern is the parking, and I think we have really asked the questions that need to be asked. But the parking ties in with the second problem, which is absolutely apparent at this local, regional, and state level, and that is gridlock. That there are hours in town when you simply cannot go. There was one day I was going to be late for a meeting at Marshall Simons, and I said, I can't take my bike, I better take the car. And I realized I should have taken my bike. I would have gotten there twice as fast. So I think we need to think about both of these when we look at the solutions. And sidewalks are a part of the solution, and town meeting has a sidewalk committee on which I have been. One of the things that Tom Hayes informed us is that we hadn't appropriated money since he'd been here. He's a young one, he's only been here 27 years. But since then, we had not appropriated money for new sidewalks. The sidewalks that have come have been thanks to planning board getting them tied with developments and that kind of thing. But it's going to be an expensive and huge proposition, but one that improves the quality of life in Burlington, and that has cost factors that we can't overlook. But the second part of this is the whole question of transportation. And parking lots get tied with transportation. And it seems to me that one of the things I'm really working on at the moment is seeing how do we get a survey of all the various town transportation sources and possibilities, and how do they interlock? How could they be the quality improved and the costs reduced? And I think if we considered the school buses, the Beeline, the Uber security, subsidy kind of option, the shuttle buses that the business community, I think all of those need to be looked at. And I think that if we put all of this together, what you're proposing here seems like a good implemental kind of plan. You're not doing everything at once, but taking it slowly and really investigating what needs to be done. So keep up the good work, and I appreciate all the help that's gone into it, because I think it was Paul said, we really need to work together on this, and that's every single aspect of town, because this is a problem that goes every direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Nash. Thank you. Go ahead.
Dave Norton, Recreation Commissioner. So I'm for this plan, as the other people, Brendan and Kevin, who are also on the board. And why? We need more space than less space. Kristen had said the number, you guys keep saying you're looking for an actual number of, and she's saying we're short 40 spaces. That's what she's saying when everything's going on. So that's what that's the number I would go off of. If you're looking for a number, we're short 40, and we're looking for 20, and you want to take 7 away to get us to 13. So, I don't know why you would want to take more spaces away when this town's only getting bigger as far as events. Our recreation department has a lot more events going on. We have a lot more programs, and so I think you guys should really commit to the 20 spaces that we're looking at right now. Aesthetically, I know you're looking for the green space, but I think it's more important to get what Tom had put a lot of work into to get the 20 spaces, and he's come up with a safe plan. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sherry?
Thank you. Sherry Ellis, town meeting member in this case. A couple of questions and then a thought. The one-way driving is always beneficial, and we have angled parking that you're proposing for the front. There's angled parking on the side, but there's straight parking in the back. Not that I want to take away spaces, because angling spaces probably will lose some, but how many would you lose if you angled in the back? Because again, you're making these harder turns, and as Member Covino stated, it's harder to park that way. And then that's the spot where you have the children running in and out of the building, so the angled spots seem to be maybe a safer way to go. So that was just a comment, a thought, or a question.
You mean across the back?
Across the back.
Tom, is that something you thought about?
No, I don't think we put any, because, our goal here was to maximize parking. So if we,
I didn't know how many you would lose if you did that.
we could further shrink pavement width, but then you also shrink,
Makes it harder to park.
The problem with the current plan is that you got two-way traffic on the back. So if you angle it, it's actually two-way
Oh, it's
traffic.
two-way traffic.
Yeah.
They can go out the
It's
other
going to
way.
be one way once it hits the end, and then it's one way. But up until it hits the end, it's
That's gonna be a
two-way.
nightmare.
Yeah,
That's
so,
going to be a nightmare.
so that would have to be addressed. If you were going to do that, it would have to be one way, truly one way all around.
I think it should be truly one way.
Why is it two-way up there?
Yeah, I think
I
that's
thought it
going
was
to be a
gonna be one
nightmare.
way all the way around.
That's two-way back there.
Yeah,
it's two-way right now.
yeah.
And it's a nightmare now.
Well, it's two-way right now, but you're saying the new plan, it's proposed two-way back there.
Oh, I didn't know
Still
that.
two-way.
Yeah, it's
Back,
two-way.
but
I thought it was gonna be one way all around.
We have 24-foot aisle width, which is adequate for two-way traffic, as well as for
Right.
making the turn into the parking space. We could reduce it down. We could reduce it down.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Reduce it down and then it's gonna be one way all the way around.
Yes.
Wasn't that
but
what
then-
you said?
But then we're gonna lose,
No, they were reducing it and keeping it two-way.
we're also gonna lose a lot
Not
of parking
intended.
spaces.
The proposed plan is two-way in the back, only one way when you come around the
Oh.
corner toward where the angled spots are.
Yes.
Oh.
So it's two-way through the whole back, right up to the dumpster.
Okay.
We have straight-on parking.
That's
And
the
then,
current.
once you're into the south parking lot, it's all one-way because it's angle parking.
Okay, well, that was just one thought or question. The second is to kind of backtrack or add on to Millie's comment about transportation as a whole. We've just approved a $50,000 grant for Uber and Lyft, again, to the member's point about having Uber and Lyft coming to this building, I don't know where it is, a signage, a GPS point or something, but you're going to have, as the B line goes away next year, you won't have one spot for a bus. You're going to need 5, 6, 7 spots for Ubers and Lyfts to come and pick up people. So just thinking towards the future, and/or if there are other shuttles in town that may be coming up here, I think having spaces available for that kind of transportation is going to be vital. Also, speaking as a Meals on Wheels driver, noontime every day, there's 4 or 5 cars, vans that come in twice, once to pick up and once to bring back. So that's also happens to be a very busy time at the Council on Aging. And a lot of times, the Meals on Wheels drivers are double parking, just, running in, getting things and coming out. But that's not a very safe idea either. And/or driving around that circle 3 or 4 times for me to find a parking space somewhat close to that side of the building, is an issue. So again, it's timing. Certain times are not as busy as others. But I think that transportation issue that we're trying to figure out as a town, we should allow for more than just one space at this building, because these are the people that need the public transportation more than some of the other buildings in town. My one final comment, I apologize, I haven't been involved in too much of this, but as we were, I'm not even sure it's on, but as we were talking earlier at the other public meeting, we were talking about parking structures and decks. I don't know if this has been thrown out there or not, but there is the Grandview Common, that the parking is much lower below. Was there ever a thought about putting a deck so that some of that parking for them would be covered, and that would add additional parking to up above for this facility? I don't know.
I don't know if that was considered.
That was a question.
I don't know. I know they're very much more expensive than
Correct, correct.
than paving.
But I just didn't know if that ever came into
I'm not aware.
play. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on this matter? No? Okay, then I guess I have a question for my board members. Since we can't start construction until next year, I personally don't see the harm in striping the parallel spaces on the horseshoe just as a test to see how things go. And so I'd like to get feedback from the board on that. And then I would suggest, and I would want your feedback on this, that we could approve this with the 13 spaces with 8 in reserve, and that would be contingent upon the outcome of our test, if that makes sense.
Yeah, other than, can I ask Tom a question?
Of course.
When do you have to put together the documents to put this out to bid so that you could have it done by next fall? I mean, what kind of lead time? I know it's...
I mean, we could go, it's not super critical, this is not a school where we only have a small window. We could go as late as June or July.
Oh,
down the
okay,
street.
okay. Then, yeah, then that would work. Okay.
I have another question, if I may.
Of course.
What would it cost if we were to say, okay, well, let's do the 13 now, and then you do the landscaping, in front of the building, and then at a later date, we came back? Is there a significant cost bringing the 8 spaces or the rear spaces at a later date?
Well, it's not going to double the cost of the project, but you're mobilizing twice, and then any of the infrastructure you put in, or any of the granite curbing, landscaping, that all has to come out. So
That's not actually what I was suggesting, though.
Okay.
What I was suggesting is if we stripe in the 10 spots, then we have a period of time when we're trying that out. If we find that the 10 spots are sufficient, then putting in 13 is going to be better. And we would, if we found that the 10 were insufficient, we could put in all 20.
So would we review that at a later date?
Yeah, we have.
That's what I was
Who
thinking,
would-
but I
who
mean,
would
I'm,
do that? Who would be
we
the,
would.
who would be counting, would we out there counting cars, or, I mean, how are we gonna quantify that?
that is it's a very good question. I'm not
I
exactly
think
sure.
the board, at least some of us go there
Yeah,
fairly
we would have to-
regularly.
Yeah,
we can-
and it's also
we do
going to be
now.
recording complaints, and we're going to be talking with the people that work there, and it's probably not one data point.
Yeah, when I get
It's a
older, I'll
suggestion.
let you know.
I'm one member, I just wanted to sort of get the feel from people. If we can do this striping test at no cost, why wouldn't we? Because we can't do the construction now anyway.
My only concern there is that you have, and I don't wanna, you have older drivers, and you're gonna be asking them to parallel park during the test,
But actually, what we suggested is we would ask the employees to use the parallel parking.
and then make the other elderly walk farther.
No,
No, they're-
on the side they
They're
could park
walking
on the
from where
side.
they are now.
Same spots.
Yeah. It's the same as where the spots are now.
Yeah, and there's a lot, I mean, there's very sufficient handicap parking there as well. That whole side of the building is all handicap parking, so anyone who has a problem, you know, and has a placard and has a problem getting around is sufficient
Right.
for that. But it would also open up.
I think in
Because it
theory, it's
wouldn't-
a good idea,
It wouldn't
but,
delay the project because you can't start the project now anyway.
but my only concern is just, how are you gonna quantify that? Like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna take Tuesdays, I'm gonna do Wednesdays? Like,
No.
how do you?
I do Mondays.
No, but I'm not, I'm
Well,
seriously
it's-
asking.
Yeah.
It is, it's a
Yeah, it's
valid
just
question.
same thing we do
Yeah.
now.
No, I mean, well, it's no different than quantifying it right now, exactly.
Yes.
I mean, it's, you know,
It
we
is.
gotta.
People are saying there's not enough, and we go there and we go,
Right.
looks okay, but so, you just
Right.
get the different input, just how we're doing it now.
Yeah, we're having
Well,
a
I feel
hard
like there's
time.
not enough. I don't think so.
Well, that's one of seven,
Yeah,
so
one
that's
of seven.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all right.
Can I make a suggestion, Madam?
Yes, please.
So, and it just, and when we get to these spots with other projects, it's kind of like, okay, well, we know 2 phases is going to be more expensive than 1 phase. So would it be possible, if we did the 20 spaces up front, I think we can have a significant conversation about additional landscaping in front of those spaces, of the 20 spaces?
I'm not suggesting 2 phases, though.
You know,
Well, if you're gonna do the 10 spaces, evaluate, and only build the 13 spaces, and then come back and build,
We would
Additional
only
I don't
do
think
that
that's right.
if, no, what I was suggesting is
Okay.
do the 10 striped, evaluate, and based on how that test goes, you would do 13 if 10 was fine. And now
Or-
you're getting a little bit more than that. If 10 was tight and wasn't working, then you'd build 20.
Go to the plan.
Right.
Yes.
Because the reality is, even if we approved it tonight, it's
they
still
can't.
not gonna be
Not gonna-
built
yeah.
until that evaluation period is over anyways. Whether we use
Right.
an evaluation period or not, it's still not gonna be built before
right, but if
that,
you're,
so-
if you're requiring the employees to park in the 10, then you have to go see where 10 spaces are available
Sure.
Right, well,
elsewhere.
it's the whole site where you're trying to evaluate if the spaces are sufficient or
If
not.
they're
It's
open,
not
yeah.
just on that horseshoe
It's
entrance.
the total site, so you're talking 10
Right,
plus everywhere.
and Tom has told us they can do the striping at little or no
Oh,
cost.
yeah, no, I don't have an issue of trying
We
to
could,
practice the striping, it's just to Mike's point of kind of how do we figure this out? And in my experience, what do you want right now and how much landscaping do you want up front? I think is a question that I think we should be asking here. But I don't know, I'm just trying to throw out options.
I think when I go there, and, you know, I go there and I don't just look in the parking space, I go back around and say, every time, I go, how am I doing, how's the spots? You know, I do that every time I go there, so
Getting a
it's
new
just kind of a
assistant.
general view, and I'll have
Probably
dozens of
assistant
data
manager.
points.
Too much to do.
Okay,
Yeah, it's a good question.
I understand.
How much green space is there in the plan as you just presented to us? Is it 5 feet, 6 feet, 10 feet?
Additional, you mean, or?
No, I said the plan as it is now. On the other side of the curbing, between there and the building and with the walkway and so forth, how much green space? Because now, with all the various different kind of bushes they have and so forth, you can take a relatively, small space and green space it. Might put some nice evergreens in there or whatever, and
This,
Yeah.
this rectangle here would be the green space up against the building. So we'd have new sidewalk coming through, and then this would all be green space. I mean, it's all green space now.
Yeah. But my question was, after you put the sidewalk in, how much space is left?
Sidewalks are anyway.
None?
In terms of square feet?
Yeah. No, just if you have the parking, and then it's gonna be green space, and you're gonna put a sidewalk in there, what's the distance that's left for green space after you put the sidewalk in on the other side of the parking in front of the building?
About 12 to 15 feet.
15 feet?
12 to 15.
Jesus, I think you could get as much green space as you really want in there with that, unless you want to make give it to the garden club.
To Paul's point, if I could, so what's the reason for not approving all the spaces that are asked for? Is it because we want more green space? Why? I mean, I'm throwing it out as a devil's advocate at the moment. Why
I don't think
won't
we ever
approve?
approve more parking than people actually need. So if we have a way to evaluate whether or not they need the spaces, and we can do that cheaply or at no cost, why wouldn't we?
Okay, but would anybody say that it isn't true that when the Marion Tavern is used to full capacity, there is a big event going on at Rec, and COA has something that there are not enough
And
parking
that brings us to Kristen's point. You don't plan for Christmas. You plan for
well,
busy
they didn't
days,
do it
but
at
you don't
Christmas.
plan
It's
for
the middle of the year.
catastrophes.
Well,
No, but my point was the
the
zoning
question is this.
compliance of 40
They're not even,
was zoning compliance. It wasn't, the mall is compliant, but it's really full or overfull at Christmas.
so we have town buildings in Burlington
Yeah.
that do not comply with the parking regulation, although we force everybody else to.
Well,
Okay.
so that my answer to your question was just that. I mean, in other words, this falls within the overlay, and we've literally told businesses that insisted that they have the parking in the front, maybe you better find another location if you can't put the parking in the back. We've told them that. And
That's when they're building new buildings, I believe.
Yeah.
Not when they're
Well, that's right.
modifying their parking fields.
Well, no,
We don't
so
let
we
them
would
put
let
more
them
parking
come
in
to us
front.
now and put more, after this, let's say they were existing, we would let them now come
Well,
and put
that's-
additional parking in the front of the building?
We
No.
can,
I wouldn't. I mean, that's, just doesn't comply with the overlay, right? So,
I'm one voice, but I mean, this is our team. This is not a business coming into town. This is not a store. This is our rec department. This is our recreation commission, and they're asking us for 20 spaces. I feel like when I go over there, there's a problem with the parking, and I just think that they need it. It's just my
I don't
opinion.
have a problem, and I'm open to the 20 spaces, and I'm not digging my heels in, but I will say about what you just said causes me great concern.
It's okay.
Because we cannot apply our rules differently to the town when it comes to us than we can to businesses when they come to us. If a business came to us and said, we want to pave our green space in front of our building within the town center, we would say no.
but they don't comply with our zoning bylaw now. They don't have the parking required.
I understand that.
Okay,
But
so you take the whole thing as a canon.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is, whenever we can, we have to apply the bylaw evenly to everyone.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
right.
Saying
That's
they
right.
don't comply with zoning, so therefore, we wouldn't
And
let,
the reason they don't comply with zoning is because of events at Grandview, not because of the Human Services Building. We're talking about the Human Services Building. If you take Grandview out of the equation, they comply.
okay. I don't know if that's true. I haven't looked into that.
That's my
part.
understanding.
Okay.
And I don't think that should, I'm not saying that we shouldn't allow for events at Grandview. I think it's a wonderful facility, and I'm glad that people are using it. But we're not out of compliance if you just look at this property.
I don't, okay.
That's my
we're not-
understanding. I could
Right,
be
we're out of
mistaken.
compliance with
Right.
Grandview. I understand what you're
Right.
saying.
I'm going to make a motion soon.
Okay.
No, and we've done that before, where people say, you've got the places next to each other, and I've heard it from the applicant, and I've heard it to say, no, we're only looking at this site, and that's the only thing we can look at. And that's how we'd have to judge the application, and so if we do it here,
Yeah, you're right,
Right.
except that they're.
And I'm open. I think this is an excellent plan.
Yeah.
I wanted to make this suggestion as something we could consider. I'm not digging my heels in. I do think it makes sense to do this little 10-space test because it costs us nothing and it doesn't even change the time frame.
Okay, then how about if I make a motion to approve as presented, and the engineering department commits to putting those spaces in, and if they work fine and there's plenty of parking, and everybody can, look, then they come back and they modify the plan, they make a minor engineering change to change it back, instead of not approving it all. I want to get rid of it. I've been looking at it for 3 years. I mean, it's crazy.
Right, so if we're gonna put the plan in place to stripe, my suggestion would be then to take the plan and modify the way we modified it, because if it works, then we're talking about giving them 12 or 13 spots instead of the 10, and it wouldn't be this plan, it'd be a different plan.
Yeah, okay, so Madam Chair, can I make a motion?
Sure you can.
Anyone can make a
I'd
motion.
like to make a motion that we approve the plan as presented, with the caveat that the engineering department, between now and the time they have to advertise for it, stripe the front of the building with the fewer parking spaces, the parallel parking spaces that we were talking about. And if that works fine, that they come back to us and ask for a minor engineering change. In other words, I'm doing it backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
But I'm getting it off the agenda and moving us on.
Well, no, they're gonna come back anyway.
The
for
same.
minor engineering change. They're not-
No, well,
we're not-
they-
we're
no,
not-
they don't have to come
They
back
wouldn't
if
come
it
back unless
it
they
doesn't-
thought they didn't need the extra 8.
Right, right, that's what
I
I'm saying,
would-
I'm backwards.
You
That's
can
my
tell they're
motion
enjoying it, so they don't mind
What-
coming back.
I'm sorry?
Can I second that motion?
You can second the motion. Do we have to vote on that before we have a second
No,
motion?
I think we have to close the
Let me-
public
let me-
hearing.
Discussion on the
I'm not
motion.
really understanding.
Yes,
what-
you do need to close the public hearing, so,
Oh, pardon me.
sorry.
Okay. I was too
Before you
fast.
make a motion to.
Okay. I don't want to close the public hearing.
I just want to highlight some things that are in the decision.
Okay.
That's from the discussions of the past till now. We did add in a decision that landscaping shall be added in front of the new parking lot, wherever it ends up being the edge, to shield headlights and glare from automobiles to Center Street, as we typically do with any type of parking lot that has anything facing toward the street. We did add the stop line and as well as the new, we added the stop line in the rear corner near Recreation as commented, as well as I have a note to add the shape of the island.
Well, we were talking about also a speed hump.
Yep, I'm getting there. And then a speed hump shall be evaluated in the rear of the building to slow traffic. And anyway, those things, and then I had the front parking question mark. But anyway, I just wanted to, if you vote, that's what's in there right now. So
Okay.
as amended with the change
Okay.
of shape. And any further amendments we can add in, but.
So let me get it straight, because I guess the motion.
As well
is-
as to-
The motion is for the 20 spots, and then come back if they decide that
They want
the
less.
plan works?
Who decides?
Well, you can ask the
Yeah.
motion.
Yeah, well, that's
If
what
they
I'm
don't-
asking. I'm clarifying.
Right, the
Is
same way that we're
correct?
saying, okay. I'm sorry, I withdraw my motion because you need to close the public hearing
Okay.
first. I make a motion to close the public hearing. You
Can
don't
we
have
wait?
to accept it.
We can still discuss after the public hearing is closed, correct? No, okay, then I don't want
We
to,
can
I'm not
discuss.
voting on that yet.
Well,
We
you
can
can't,
discuss-
yes.
we can discuss the
You can-
motion.
You can discuss, yes, you can discuss the motions.
Why can't
But you
we
can't take new
do
testimony.
the test and then come back in 6 or 8 months and see how it went, and then we either approve 13 or we approve 20?
Right, I don't get.
I don't want to see it
Well,
again.
then you're continuing it for 8 months, and then they can't go out to bid to try to figure out how to construct anything.
So they can't go
Actually,
out to bid?
That's the problem, that I think
Okay.
the test, if you wait till approve until after the test,
Okay.
they don't know what they're bidding for, so, right?
Is it possible, Kristen, to approve it with 13 spaces and 8 held in reserve? We do the test, and then all they would have to do is come back. If they determined that the 10 were not sufficient, all they would have to do is come back to release the ones that are in reserve.
It's
You
possible,
can make a finding that they do that.
possible,
They
but
hold it that they've built out the ones in reserve. But my point, the point that I was trying to make earlier was, then they have the 13 spaces, they've gone out to bid with it held in reserve. It's a two-phase project.
No, I'm
No.
not suggesting.
Before they go out to bid, you're saying, right? Yeah.
Yes.
But how do you do the
They
test?
can't go out to bid anyways. I mean, what you're saying is that they're gonna go out to bid. You can't go out to bid until what we're saying is that you're gonna test the 10 spots.
Right.
Even if you approve the other one, they're gonna go out to bid with that project. And let's say they say, okay, the 10 spots is fine. They've bid out a different project. So you can't really go to bid unless you know which project you're gonna bid, right? I mean.
Yeah, my motion
that's
really
what-
didn't have anything to do with the bidding.
Yeah.
My motion just had something to do with, let's
Right,
get
but
this
but
over.
Kristen attached the bidding to it and said, the
Well,
reason is because they need to bid.
My motion didn't have anything.
I
to
get
do
it,
with
but
bidding.
she attached the bidding and said they will then go out and bid the project. Well, we don't know which project we're bidding, right? And until we've determined that.
Well, my motion was to approve this project as it's presented, with the caveat that if it was determined by the town
Well, who's
that
the
the
town?
spaces, well, it's more than the planning board usually. So those pieces were
Well,
really needed.
we were the ones that would have to
Well,
determine it.
you're voting
We're the
it,
ones
but
that
then
are
you're
voting
saying
on
someone
it.
else is gonna determine it.
Can I ask Tom a question? Tom,
I'm gonna
if
call
we
and
were
check,
to
see how things are going.
approve this, have you stripe it for the test, approve it with 13 and 8 held in reserve, not to be done in 2 separate phases, but for the decision to be made to go either with 13 or 20 after the test is over, but before you begin construction, would that hinder you moving forward?
Oh, we would have to have the test complete. So someone, the town, the planning board would have to make the call, saying, okay, it's adequate, it's not
Right.
adequate. And then we would go out to bid. So we could
So
have.
would
everything-
that be a problem for you?
Well, we'd have it designed and ready to go, and it all depends on when do we call the test complete. So we could easily bid this in June or July.
Okay.
And work up through October and get it complete.
Okay, so we could, if we determined that we wanted to do the test, we could say the test would be running from whenever you can stripe it till May. Would that make sense and not delay your project?
No, I think
Okay.
Public Works could probably get out there within the next couple of weeks and stripe it. And then
Okay.
test it out until May, and then someone says, yes, it works, or no, it doesn't, and we'll put it up for bid.
May I
Okay.
add something, please?
Yes.
So, when does the Beeline service, when does that actually stop? So, when does the subsidized Uber project start?
We're hopeful to get it started up shortly. The Beeline is scheduled to end at the end of the fiscal year, so June 30th.
June 30th, okay.
So,
With all due respect to Mrs. Alice, Ubers don't park. They pull up, you hop in and you go. If you're not there when they pull up, they leave. So we don't need to plan parking spots for Ubers.
I'm not looking to plan parking
Okay.
spaces. I'm just noting that they're going to have to pull up, and if it's,
They'll pull up, yes.
they're elderly
Yes.
folks who are going to take time to
Yes.
grab that Uber.
They'll pull up, yeah.
There'll be some potential friction there, too, so that we want to make sure that there's enough room for those folks to pull up and
Well,
get
there'll
in
be
and
room.
out.
Yeah, I think there'll be room either way. I mean, they're not going to pull into the spaces anyway. I've never seen an Uber do that.
Never. Madam Chair, do you have a comment? Or a couple?
Brendan Egan again, Director of Parks and Recreation. So when we're talking about, I heard some comments earlier about striping and parallel parking spots, and the staff can park there, which is great, but I don't know if we're in the position to tell our staff where they're gonna park if they're not comfortable parallel parking. And I'm not trying to make this go on any longer, because I think it's been a great conversation,
You
very
could
healthy.
consider it a suggestion, not an order.
Correct. There is also the concern of a fire lane in the front, and will fire apparatus have enough room to circle around if cars are parked there? And Beeline buses, or COA buses that pick up in the front. So
I
I'm just
assume
trying to
because
hash these all out
engineering- yes.
tonight.
Engineering did sketch that out, not that sketch isn't probably the right word, so I assume that they were confident that emergency vehicles could get through, am I correct?
Well, we should probably run it by
Okay,
the fire department, make sure they
Okay.
can do it.
So, the Parks and Recreation Department staff is pretty good. If, we said, hey, if you can park out in front, they would probably park there, for the most part. But at the same time, and someone just brought this up, who makes that final decision? Because if we have 10 staff vehicles parked there, are people going to say that's enough, oh yeah, we need 13 spots, we need the 20 spots? Who makes that decision?
Well, I think
We're in the building every day, which is
Right.
why I'm here tonight to
Right.
talk about those 20.
The planning board would make the decision with input from the people who use the building, the engineering department, with all of the interested parties.
Okay, because I think the plan as it's presented today has been pared down is a very good plan for the building and allows for enough additional parking to cover just our
understand.
building. I know overflow with the Grandview was talked about, and that's where we go over the compliance. But there are many days in evenings when just events in our building alone fill the parking lot, and then they go down below or just go home or park on the lawn. So, and I will say that I'm not intimidated by a parallel parking spot, but there are a lot of people
There
that
are people who are, I understand.
So, and
Thank
it's
you.
not, it's apples to oranges because we're talking about head-in parking on the plan, but we're asking to test with parallel
Just
parking.
testing the number of spots.
Correct.
Yes,
I get that,
understand.
but it's
Total numbers.
No, I
not the
understand your
same.
concern. Thank you.
So,
Okay.
Thank you.
So,
Chair,
yes.
May I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Hopefully this makes it a little bit easier, but first of all, I'd like to thank you guys, because I think all of your input to date has really resulted in a much better project than we started with.
I think you're right.
But quite frankly, I'm not sure if we would proceed with 13 spaces anyway.
Really?
Costs I mean, we were gonna do 50 some odd spots with the summer money. We're down to 20, so we'll save a little bit of money, but there's a lot of sunk costs there, just from doing the project that we're not, on a per space basis, the cost is going up pretty rapidly, so I think we would have to
Well,
sort of reconvene on that, and.
That's
what-
kind of an argument for continuing until the test is done, and then making the call.
I was just gonna suggest that, we would be almost inclined to just take a vote on the 20 spaces. We'll respect the decision, up or down, and then we can take that and go back and see if we want to proceed with a different plan with less spaces, and we can spend some time and resubmit an application at that time, if that's something that's agreeable to you.
Say that, I didn't quite understand that.
I'm just
Oh,
saying,
sorry.
give us a vote up or down on the,
Okay,
on the
that's what you're
plan
saying.
Tom presented, and if it's a no vote, we'll go back and reconvene
This
with
way, lot of time.
our folks, and we'll determine whether or not
So
we
you
want to
don't want
proceed.
the test? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I just, like I say, for us at this point, the 20 spaces is sort of
Yep.
cost-wise, and from, I'm a believer that we do need the spots, so I know that there's.
What's the cost for the 20, the 15 versus the 20? The 12 or 13?
13 versus the 20.
Well, it's more of a cost per space.
Yeah.
So if we build out 20 spaces, there's a certain cost per space. Say this whole project costs, I don't know, between 125, 130, 125 to 150,000 maybe.
Yeah, and that's what the pavement of the whole.
Right.
That's repaving the whole thing, which you need to do anyways, right?
Right.
So it's fairly insignificant, that piece of it, versus repaving the whole thing, which you know needs to be done, period, right? Because it's breaking apart. So the difference, so if you, let's say you didn't deal with parking at all, how much would it cost you to pave that whole area and move the back the way you want to move the back and change that back piece of it? Versus the 120 or 150,000.
Yeah, I mean, we would have to calculate. The big money is, I mean, resurfacing is easy, because all you're doing is you're taking and you're putting back in kind. We have a lot of infrastructure. We have the stormwater. The stormwater as depicted is probably, $50,000 just for the storm scepter and the
Have to do that either
the
way.
pipe and the
Which all has to be done anyway.
well, if we were resurfacing, we wouldn't do it. We're
If
just
you weren't adding any
right,
parking?
and
Yeah.
then we have the additional lighting. We have the additional, curbing, sidewalks.
And
all
then if
those-
you wouldn't have to move in, moving that back in is gonna be a cost as well, right?
Yeah, so I think what Paul's getting at is if we look at the front where all the construction is, the cost per lot, it has, specific cost per lot, per space. And now we cut that by a third. The cost, it doesn't double, but it's significantly more.
No, but I guess what I'm saying in relation to the whole project, what you have to spend regardless of whether you gain any spots or not, the bulk of that money is repaving and moving the back, which you would be doing anyways. It's fairly insignificant piece of that whole thing about creating the spots, creating the spaces in the front.
Those 8 spaces is what you mean, is not that.
I mean, that's such an insignificant a piece of that whole project, is my point. So you can't just say, well, it seems like you're attributing the whole 150,000 to whether it's, 20 spaces or whether it's 12 spaces. No, that's a small piece of the project. You're doing the other piece regardless. So it's not, you can only attribute, what, 20% of that whole project to the parking in that area, that maybe 20% of the whole project, which, if you look at that, it's fairly insignificant, which means the cost per space is going to be very insignificant.
Joe, I'm assuming if we go as is, we'll pave the parking lot, there won't be additional lights, I don't know if we need a.
Well, the additional lights, that's all stuff that you can choose either way. You're the ones who added those, and you're the ones who decided to move the parking lot in the back. We didn't ask that, right?
I think it's a great
We're only
idea,
talking
though.
about the point is, you're talking about restructuring the whole thing, and that's fine, but, it sounds like you're putting a squeeze on to say, well, it's, this 8, it's make or break, it's those 8 spots, or forget it, we're not doing the project. It's a squeeze is what it is, and I don't appreciate that as someone who's trying to work with you guys. Because it sounds like
I don't intend it
the
as a squeeze.
appearance is
Before
that you're not working back here, is my point.
No, I'm
Before
just
we-
saying, we'd be content to accept whatever decision you came with on this plan.
Okay. And when an applicant says that, we usually take a vote. One more thing, just to add, that somebody went to the trouble of sending us an email. I just wanted to make sure that was included in the records.
It's already been.
Okay, okay,
Yes, definitely, yes.
okay. Now, can I make a motion to close the public hearing? We can discuss the motion after the public hearing is closed.
You may.
No, it isn't. It's up to somebody who wants to second it. Anybody want to second my motion?
Yeah, I
Second.
did, I made the motion before you did,
No,
but that was fine.
close.
It's closed?
Close, second?
I was told by
All
the
those in
chair.
favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 7-0.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the project as presented
Second.
with the, with the modifications that have been
Suggested by staff.
suggested by
Okay.
staff. Right,
No test.
no test, no
Okay.
test.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Wait, hands up and keep them up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Nay.
Aye.
2, 3, 4, 3.
Majority
It's
vote.
approved.
It's approved.
It's approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. Moving on, we are on item 7B. Hold on a minute while I get there. Okay. Item 7B is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to Section 4.2.6.9, fast order food establishments of the zoning bylaws, 85 Middlesex Turnpike, Burlington, Mass., Burlington Mall. Sweet Green Boston LLC, doing business as Sweet Green, is the applicant. Welcome, and I apologize for the long wait. Thank you for your patience.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. For the record, Attorney Mark Vaughn here tonight representing the applicant, Sweet Green, in connection with the special permit application that's been submitted. Maybe what I'll do before we start here, so I can hand these out, just some menus of Sweet Green.
Thanks, Liz.
Hire Jamie McClinchy, who is with Sweet Green, meeting, along with Ryan Welch, who's an architect with O'Neill Lang Architects, the architectural firm of record that prepared the floor plan and renderings that have been submitted. But we're here in connection with a proposed fast casual restaurant concept that is looking to locate within the former, I'm not going to call it the Tire Battery Auto Building anymore, the former Tire Battery Auto Building that's at the Burlington Mall. It's now known as Burlington Village, but this particular restaurant would be located in the corner of the building that is most proximate to the former Sears building, the main mall building itself. So they would occupy that corner, which is Cafe Nero is on that right-hand corner. This would be on the left-hand corner, which is shown there as space 35. 3060, I'm sorry, yep. So they are it's a fast casual restaurant concept. They serve seasonal healthy salad, grain bowls. I think Jamie can speak to the company a lot better than I can, but a lot of fresh products that are brought in daily. They were founded in 2007, and I actually found it interesting that they were founded by 3 undergraduates from Georgetown who met each other during their freshman year and came up with this idea and concept. So it's a pretty neat story. But again, the use requires a special permit. There's no extension of the building at all. We're simply taking over the building as it was previously approved pursuant to the site plan process with the planning board. There would be an outdoor patio dining area. That is shown on the plans that's been submitted. That patio actually exists today. The pavers are out there. They're consistent with the same paver style that exists at Cafe Nero. I know that was a comment of the board before, wanting to maintain a certain pattern of uniformity in terms of the paver appearance. And there would be 16 seats on the patio, with 24 seats on the inside. And the intent is to be able to have that outdoor patio with planter boxes that would surround it to provide some color and some decor. And I think, as the board knows, obviously there's bollards along all of the parking spaces that face the storefront as well to provide additional protection for patrons from motorists. But
thank you.
I know that Jamie wanted to just say a few words about her excitement about being able to locate here in town. So.
Thank you, Mark, and good evening, Madam Chair and Board. As Mark mentioned, Sweet Green, we were founded in 2007, about 12 years ago, by Georgetown University students who were having a hard time finding healthy food quickly while they were studying, and came up with the concept for Sweet Green. And since day one, our mission has been to build healthier communities by connecting people to real food. And we do that by preparing food every day from scratch. We source our food from local farmers. We have a great supply chain team who works on that. And our menu offering, we have a core menu that is available year-round, but we have a seasonal menu that we have 5 seasonal menus that launch periodically throughout the year. And from the guest experience, when you order, you can order directly with one of our team members. They prepare the food in front of you, so you can see the ingredients right in front of you as you're ordering. We also have the ability to order in advance via our app, and the food would be ready when you come and pick up in person. And then from the design, we keep that mission in mind in terms of the transparency with the food. We have an open kitchen concept, so you can see the food being prepared, washed, chopped, and baked and prepared before it comes to the serve line. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Oh, I should say that we're very excited to finally have the opportunity to open a location in Burlington. And we thought this new development was a really great opportunity for us to be a part of.
Okay, thank you. Kristen, did you have anything you wanted to add?
This was actually the site that you had previously approved Cava. So this is taking over for Cava. It's just not as, in terms of they're both fast casual type restaurants. So just to orient you. But no, we don't have any objection to this. This is, a lot of people actually have been curious about Sweet Green. They opened in Linfield a little while ago, and we've definitely had a few calls of when are they gonna hopefully open in Burlington, so I think they'll make a lot of people happy, opening a location here.
Are there bollards around the outdoor patio?
That's one of the comments.
Okay, we'll go to department comments, thank you.
All right, so, Inspector of Buildings, approval with the following, and that suggests the installation of bollards along the sidewalk and parking area in the main entrance door. DPW, they're out of order here. DPW has, do you want me to read them all, or have you seen the comments from the DPW in relation to the?
We have seen them, Joe,
Okay.
so we're.
As it's
fine.
kind of long, okay. Fire Department, approval, no comment. Board of Health. Want me to read them, or you have the Board of Health?
We have those as well. Those
Yep,
are all.
so it's approval with the conditions. And then the conservation, there are no conservation issues with the application, so really the only comment was the bollards and then the standard engineering and
Okay.
Board of Health.
Great, well, you have the mic, do you have any questions?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, Paul?
All set?
Brenda?
No questions, but I have been to your Linfield location, and it is delicious.
Mike?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, there's a lot of excitement for you guys coming to town, so everyone's pretty happy about it. My question was, what's the percentage difference, just on a guess, eat-in versus takeout at the restaurant?
It's majority takeout.
Majority takeout? So will you be looking for, like, designated spaces for takeout?
No, we have not requested that.
Okay. Excellent. Nothing further, Madam Chair.
Good question. Bill?
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair. I think the only question I have is for staff, just on the special permit decision on the umbrellas with advertising on it. Where's that in the
Yes.
Oh.
It's actually, there's a few questions, I see.
It's
we
not
have-
specifically in there because it is not allowed. We are working with the building department on another umbrella with labels on it.
Okay.
If you'd like us to reiterate that on this tenant, we are happy to.
I would,
Thank you.
Okay. No problem.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
thank you. Ernie?
No real questions, just a curiosity thing. So the new building is now going to be known as 85, and the mall itself is 75, is that right?
Yeah, as part of the permitting with the building department, fire department, they thought it best that there be different building addresses, just for safety reasons. right?
Thank you, that was just curious. Thank you.
Great.
And glad to see you coming to Burlington.
I don't have any questions. I do see that you brought a representative from the mall, as we asked you to, so
Power's not out
I don't
today.
want to hold you up, so I want us to continue vote on that, but don't leave. Okay? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this matter? Okay, then I think we are probably
Can
ready.
I just ask one question?
course.
that, before you close? That
Mhm.
and I think we had a preliminary opportunity to raise this with staff, but it relates to the standard condition that you do put in the special permit about odor control. And we wanted to see if the board might be willing to relax that as it relates to this particular establishment. I think that the standard condition that you put in is that the applicant install, use, maintain effective odor control devices such as an activated charcoal filter or ionization system on exhaust ventilation system. In this particular instance, and I think Ryan can certainly speak to it better than me, but as I understand it, they do provide a hood over their oven that they have, and that's exhausted away, and they are not required by code to install anything beyond that, and they aren't doing any frying or cooking on a heated surface with grease, as I understand it, but we were not looking to incur the additional expense of having to put a rooftop system in.
So there's no grilling, only baking?
Only baking.
Okay.
How does the chicken get cooked?
In the oven, we bake our chicken.
Bake your chicken.
Board of Health have anything to say
Is that a
about it?
Board of Health thing?
No, it's,
not?
well,
Oh.
it's mainly, it's come from us,
Okay.
for the most part. I mean, the Board of Health weighs in sometimes, but it came out of, in the 80s and 90s, there was restaurants that were built without odor control, and there was a lot of pushback about odor.
Middlesex Mall.
Middlesex Mall was a huge neighborhood right behind it. Crossroads, when there were some restaurants there. So there, and that's when you started seeing odor control devices. Admittedly, yes, there are definitely restaurants that need odor control based on the way in which they cook, way more than others. But it was just a sense in Burlington, nobody wants to smell hamburgers, tacos, cookies.
Yeah.
I mean, they all smell great individually. Altogether.
That was justified, particularly on Wilmington Road, where they wanted to put a fish place in
Right.
next to the neighborhood.
Yeah, so
So-
you, those of you that were on the board at the time, I'm sure were there to the origins of this decision. It's a standard decision for restaurants. We put in every one of them. However, when there are restaurants or fast order food like ice cream shops or shops that don't cook but assemble, so we have had in the past relax some of that type of condition. However, they do need to prove that there isn't food odor
Can we?
leaving the building. So if there's a way that they can provide a system to us that can be reviewed that, or someone, the spec of the sheet is based on how you cook, that it can handle that, I think it's something we can condition and modify the condition
And
to
perhaps we
that
could
effect.
put in there that they're not grilling or frying, only baking, because that does make a big difference. And if they were to change their cooking methods to include one of those things, then they would have to install the odor.
Right. The
controlling
basic is the
device.
odor control system needs to address the odor that is emitted.
Mhm.
If there's not that much odor emitted, they don't need to have a huge complex system.
Okay.
If there is, they do. So, I mean, that's really the nexus that we're trying to
Okay.
look for. So if we can modify it so that, we still want them to prove from the manufacturer based on what they're doing, that it's sufficient to cover the odors. So if that pleases the board, we can modify it to
I'm
that.
comfortable with
Where's
that.
this a local location?
Pardon me?
I said, where is there a local location? Because you just go out and stand behind it.
Linfield, yeah.
But we
No,
don't know
really.
what their odor control systems might be in the Linfield one. But I don't have a problem with what Kristen suggested. Does anyone on the board have a problem
No.
with it?
No.
Okay, all right then. Okay, so what I was getting at is I think, unless you have any other questions, we are ready to vote on this, and then we would like to speak about other matters before, involving them all.
So you want a motion to close public?
I would like that, thank you.
Motion to close the public hearing on this matter.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0.
You want me to keep going?
Yes,
To
I
approve the
would.
request of Sweet Green, you gonna do that, Ernie?
Yes, please.
To approve the request of Sweet Green Boston LLC for a special permit pursuant to section 4.2.6.9 fast order food establishment of the town of Burlington zoning bylaws to allow for the development and operation of a 2,831 plus minus square foot fast order food establishment, beauty known as Sweet Green, for property located at 85 Middlesex Turnpike, Burlington Mall, in the general business BG and water resource WI district, subject to the terms and conditions contained in Exhibit A attached.
As amended.
Second.
As amended. Okay. Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 7-0.
Good luck.
Welcome. When do you
Welcome.
intend to open?
Oh, when do we plan to open?
Yes.
June, as long as we get all our permits in time, or?
Okay, thank you. Great, well, good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, so can you join us join the Mark at the table, perhaps? Thank you. And we do know you, but if you could state your name for the record, that would be great.
All right, Justin Feldhaus, General Manager of Burlington Mall.
Okay, so thank you for coming. There were a few things, some of which I think you've addressed, but some things that are still outstanding that we wanted to discuss with you, and I'm hoping the board members are going to help remind me in case I forget some. One is umbrellas with advertising on them. It was very clear that that was not allowed, and yet they are there. We want you to take them down.
They're not, I'd just like to remind the board that those are not our umbrellas. That I have seen umbrellas, and my assumption is that the town has requested those umbrellas to be removed. Is that correct?
According to our building department, yes.
Yes.
Requested the tenant.
So we'd like you to speak with
Requested
your
the tenant?
tenant.
I'd be happy to
Thank you.
discuss that with the tenant.
Thank you.
Of the
Now I-
Cafe Nero?
Yes,
Okay, got it.
thank you. Then we also wanted to talk with you about parking spaces that you have designated for special purposes that you don't have permission to do.
I understand. I got the message loud and clear. I reviewed the 2 videos, I think it was. You should see a site plan within the next 2 weeks that would address 15-minute parking spaces in lieu
Okay.
of some of the other spaces that exist today.
Okay, so in the meantime, what have you done?
We've removed all of the veteran spaces and the expectant mother spaces.
Yeah, and you kept 8 takeout spaces for the pizza place.
How many?
8.
There's 8 takeout
8.
spaces that
For
was
Frank
requested
Pepe's?
by Frank Pepe's.
Oh,
That's an
part of our-
outrageous number.
Right.
Well, look, I mean,
Let's see what the plan
we
comes.
heard it, it's not as simple as simply pulling them up. There's communications that are going on with them. The
Why
intent
is
is
it-
to be able to have just 15-minute generic spaces that
Okay.
are not tenant-specific. That's what we heard from the
Okay,
board, that's what we're
yes,
working on right now.
but you do understand for the future that you can't just designate special spaces on your own.
I think
So-
they understand that now.
But so if you make an agreement with a tenant and you're promising them designated spaces, if you haven't cleared that with us, you can't do that.
So respectfully, I think that there was perhaps a misunderstanding that did require planning board approval. I think that there may have been an understanding previously that if the mall wanted to have, parking spaces designated for short-term parking, for expectant mother, veteran, whatever it might be, I think the police actually had asked for a space or 2.
Police do have spaces, yes.
So, I mean, those signs were put up. So I think
Yes.
there was just an understanding that could be done through the building department because we weren't changing the parking spaces other than the nature of the term of the use. But it's
Okay.
understood that that's not what the
So
desire.
you're going to be at our next meeting with the new plan?
I'm not sure if it'll be the
Oh.
next one, but you'll have a site plan in the planning board office very soon.
So the Burlington Police requested a couple of spots?
They have several, they have,
Yeah,
I think, 3 or 4 spots.
But Burlington Police actually requested
Yes.
the spots?
Yes.
Isn't that funny?
Well, I use them because I didn't
You
think
do?
Yeah, because there's never a car.
I used the Pepe's Pizza spot, but I was afraid to use
No, there's
the
nobody in,
police spot.
there's never a car there, so.
They
I
aren't
use them.
having 8 people pick up, because I.
Oh, no,
pick
they
up-
are. Of course they're
I
not.
eat pizza a lot.
I'm talking
and
police.
There's not even, there's like me and another guy picking up pizza, and the other guy's parked illegally on the side. 6 of the spots are used.
If I can just add one more, on the other side with the pizza, there's a couple of pickup spots for that pizza. Maybe, again, turn those into the
Oh, which
temporary one
one?
for anybody.
Do you mean, wait, what do you mean, when you say the other side, do you mean the Pizzeria Regina ones?
Pizzeria Regina
Those
ones.
ones actually, I think we approved.
Okay,
Did we not?
let's double check on that. But what you have in front of those is you have actually a bricked area with a Pizzeria Regina emblem on it, which I don't know if that per plan is
On the
supposed to
other
be pervious surface or what that is. So maybe you can take a look at the plan and see if that's supposed to be brick or
Which side
if
are
that's
you
supposed to be
One of the Regina
Pizzeria
spots.
Regina.
Oh,
That's in the landscaping, I think, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's on the
Yeah.
brick.
But I think that the landscaping is actually supposed to be plantings and soil and things like that instead of brick. That's not landscaping a green space.
Okay,
I'm not sure.
I don't
Those
even know where
spaces
that is.
predate me. I
It's
can
not
certainly
space,
go back and check.
it's landscaping, we can send you this.
I
Okay.
understand.
Thank you.
So, members, are there any other questions we have for them about the mall while they're here, beside the obvious, when is the construction going to be done?
Not soon enough.
Yes.
The parking will open hopefully within the next week or so. Unfortunately, we've had some weather delays, but
All of the parking?
yes.
Oh,
Or
wonderful.
nearly all of the parking.
That's great news. That's great.
Good.
Have
Not for the
you,
holidays.
yeah, have you sat down with the building department and the police department to review the holiday plan?
The holiday plan in terms of police details and
Well,
traffic.
just parking and understanding navigation around the mall. I know you met with them a while back. I wasn't sure if there was another check-in.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Okay. All right, any other issues?
No, I might just say that the previous manager of the mall, one time it came up while I was talking with him, he said that it cost him something like $40,000 during the holidays for police details. When we were
Closer to
talking about
60,000
parking
now.
and getting something done in that area, he said, look, I'll support anything, because he said it costs a lot of money. Is it, I have another question. And that is it clear who has authority to designate parking at the mall? Is it the police or us? Because if they're saying, well, no, you didn't permit us to do that, but the police department says we can, so I think we ought to have a clarification.
Just
so
a
that-
clarification for the board, the police haven't said you're going to designate these spaces. They asked us to designate them for us.
Right.
For them, excuse me.
Yes, but the police don't normally do that. That's normally us, right?
Well,
You
for
wanna-
police and public
You-
safety, it can be a little different. The one thing I can absolutely
in an
tell you for
emergency,
sure.
absolutely, right?
Right,
That's
but the
what
one
they
thing I
want.
can tell you for sure is that in my experience, and I don't know what past practice has been, is that you can't have specific signage in specific spaces for specific tenants. The expectant mothers, the veterans, I can't really comment to that as whether the building department allowed it.
That was
but
getting crazy, to be
if it
honest
was,
with you.
Sears or Pepe's or
Yeah.
Regina's, or that was where we had to start getting involved because it was tenant-related and we approved the special permits. And so to that extent, I can say that I have full confidence that we should be reviewing those things. And it's a shared parking lot. I don't know, it's.
Right.
In our opinion, I think if you need takeout spaces, make takeout spaces, but
Not for specific restaurants.
for specific tenants.
And
Okay.
frankly, I think a shared takeout space works better for us at this
Yes.
point.
Right.
More and more of our tenants are seeing what other tenants have, Cheesecake Factory, for
Right.
instance,
Yeah, sure.
and they're asking for them.
Of course.
And, unfortunately.
I'd say no.
We made a mistake, and Frank Pepe's has 8 spaces there, and nobody realized that that was under the purview of the planning board. But we're gonna do our best to correct it.
Great.
And work with the planning board, and you guys will see a plan very soon.
Well, I'm glad you're looking at a whole parking plan, and that makes sense.
Sure.
So maybe you may want to have different spaces in different sides of the mall that are for pickups, but not
Agreed.
specific to
Yeah,
tenants.
because
I
next
think
to
that makes
Pepe's,
sense.
Karma asked for a couple, so.
Yeah.
They did, yeah, right.
Okay,
Which
all right.
we'll address as well.
Thank you, and I'm
Thank you.
thrilled to hear the parking is going to be opening up soon.
That's awesome.
Yeah, us too.
All right, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
thank you, Mark.
Okay, so we are moving on. We are on item 7F, which is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to section 1.7.15, antennas other than satellite dish antennas for the purpose of private reception of telecommunication signals, which antennas do not exceed 12 feet in height above the ground or 12 feet above the roof of a building on which they are mounted, of the Northwest Park Plan Development District zoning bylaw, 53 3rd Avenue. Telco Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless is the applicant. Welcome, and if you could please state your names for the record, that would be great.
Carl Gehring.
Thank you.
Elizabeth Fallon.
Thank you. So what we want to do tonight is, because we have discussed this at length, is find out what your final proposal is, or your proposal tonight is in terms of what the
Thank you.
antenna will
This
look
what we
like
got
on top
sent
of
by
the
email
building,
to,
because I
or
think
not?
that's, excuse me? I think that's the only the only question remaining. What would they look like? So what are you proposing they will look like?
Yeah, this is.
The flue canisters.
Blue canisters?
Flue, the round.
Oh, flu. Oh, sorry, I misunderstood. I thought you said blue. Okay. Did you discuss with Wegmans the possibility of the 3M coating?
Well,
Bad question.
I have, and I'm in a difficult position because I represent Verizon. We want to get this approved. We respectfully ask you to work with us. The landlord has their own ideas. So the landlord, if you've read my memo, first, has everyone received the memo?
We did
that I
receive
sent?
that
Yes,
earlier
yes,
today,
right.
yes.
So they have very specific ideas, and the flue canister, not a chimney, not a cupola, but the flue canister is their proposal. However, I will say, staff was kind enough to share with me a draft decision with conditions, and although I cannot suggest anything other than our original proposal, I will not object to an approval. I'd rather have an approval with conditions rather than a denial.
Yep.
Put it that way.
Okay, understood.
Sense.
Okay. Do any board members have any other questions other than what this is going to look like? Yes.
I do. So I just want to get clarification on your communication with Wegmans, and I don't see it in the minutes, because last time you gave us an email with regard to that. So the current position with Wegmans is that there's going to be no kind of 3M film, is that correct?
At their last meeting, I had submitted some emails. that I
Yes.
tried to read into the record, but you have them, where they had basically didn't feel comfortable with that, and felt
Yeah,
that-
I understood. So there's a couple of weeks have passed, so, and you were going to go back, and have they moved off of that, or you just haven't communicated with them?
No, we're still with just the straight stacks, which the original proposal was that they would be sort of a galvanized.
Let me ask you that one more time. So is there additional communication with Wegmans from what you had a couple of weeks ago?
Nothing I can share with the board.
Nothing you can share with the board.
This is our permit we're issuing. It's not
Yes, it is.
Wegmans.
That's right.
So we can issue what we want, and if they have a problem, they can
Exactly.
do whatever they have to do, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you,
Does
Madam
anyone
Chair.
else have any other questions?
Yes,
Yes.
well, I have a communication
Communication.
from Tom Butteridge of Wegmans Real Estate.
He sent it to you?
It was in my, well, you notice when I leave, I take everything?
Okay.
Believe it or not, I go home the next day, and every once in a while, there's a little gem in there. And so I'm going through, and I said, and you're gonna love this. This is from Tom Butteridge, Wegmans Real Estate, phone number on and so forth. And it's a subject, Burlington rooftop antennas. How concealing is the concealing film? That was a question, I guess, to you or to us, because we can't answer that. But is there any gauge as to how concealing the concealing film is?
I don't have personal experience with this. It's a relatively new product. I've seen on the 3M website examples and so forth, and it looks, the gist of it is it's supposed to take on the color of the sky that day. So if it's a blue sky day, it looks bluish. If it's a gray sky day, it looks grayish.
So there's no demonstration that you could give to him, there's nothing you could give to Tom Butteridge that says this is what the concealing film looks
Well,
like?
we did. We sent examples, and
Oh, I thought you said you didn't know what the concealing film looked like.
no, we sent photos of some other installations off. Basically, 3M has.
Did he make any comment on that, do you know?
Well, yes, those.
Because I'd like to see that. And by the way, the next line on this says, "No cupolas, please," and the chimney looks odd, which is why I saved this.
Yes. I remember reading that,
I
yes.
have been rather
so
criticized. I wish I had been as eloquent as he was about the chimneys. But
So that was an email dated October 1st.
Right. We have
October
that.
8th, there was a follow-up email where he said, "We spoke further, we are not comfortable with the chimney or the 3M material." So on October 8th, he said they were not comfortable with the 3M material.
Okay, thank you.
Well, my feeling is, I don't, whatever Wegman wants, it's their building. I mean, I don't look at the roof a lot, and I knew it wasn't gonna be a chimney, and so he says that's not either. And if he wants a blue stack, the sky is blue a lot around here, and I don't see, I don't see what the big deal is really, honest to God,
He wasn't saying a blue stack, he was saying a flue stack, but it's a minor point.
Yeah,
But anyway,
yeah.
all right. Okay, I think we've
Beat it to death.
discussed this pretty thoroughly. Does anyone want to make a motion?
Madam Chair, can I just say
Oh,
two
yes.
things? One, I just wanted to acknowledge that we did receive notice of recording a portion of the meeting under MGL 30A Section 20F appropriately, so if you notice that is
Yes.
happening. And we did get proper notice of that. And the second piece, the memo dated November 1st, 2019, which has also been handed out here, was received to the planning department, and we did distribute it and make sure the planning board had digested the information prior to this meeting, because I know the applicant's attorney did want to get some of the information across.
Okay.
And the last piece, I just wanted to remind the board that the special permit as it stands is for the 3 antennas to look like this This
doesn't have the film on it.
Faux flue. However, we do have a recommendation to add, so stay there just for a second.
Yeah.
For these flue, but to add, these are kind of painted light gray, blue, to reflect the average color of the sky. The 3M material is a little more responsive to the sky, so they do start to disappear a little bit more. And therefore, our recommendation is for the 3 of these installations to be this with the 3M coating.
Okay,
And
thank you.
that's what the
motion-
draft is
All
as
right,
stands.
make a motion to approve the request for Cellco Partnership,
close the
DBA
public
Verizon.
Close the
Wireless.
public
Public hearing?
Just to close the public.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yep, close the public hearing.
We
Make a
did?
motion to close the public
There's no one
hearing.
in the audience.
Second.
so-
Seconded.
Okay.
Good,
It's
thank
been
you.
moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0.
6-0.
Oh,
Six.
6-0,
Brenda
you're right, I
can't.
forgot about Brenda. That's
Make
right.
a motion to approve the request for Cellco Partnership, DBA Verizon Wireless, approval of special permits pursuant to 4.3.1.14, towers, antenna, windmills, and similar structures of the Town of Burlington zoning bylaw, and 1.7.17. This PDD bylaw shall not have the effect of changing or negating the wireless communications overlay district of the Northwest Park Plan Development District zoning bylaw for the property located within the Northwest Park Plan Development District Wireless Communication District in the Water Resource District to permit the installation of 3 ballast-mounted antennas inside
3.
3 faux flue vents wrapped with 3M concealed film at the existing Wegmans Food Market located at 53 3rd Avenue, subject to the terms and conditions contained in Exhibit B attached.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 6-0. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, we have minutes. I'm hoping that everyone has had a chance to review the 3 sets of minutes that Liz sent over.
Yes.
Yes? Yes? Are we prepared to vote on them?
Yes.
Is there anyone who cannot vote on one of them, or can we
These were
take them as a,
These weren't recent, these were last.
right?
These were
These, so can we take them all together? If everybody's voting?
in front of me, one of
Okay.
them wasn't.
Okay by me?
I can't remember what it was. I had it in front of me, but I remember it wasn't.
Oh, okay, all right, so we need to take them separately.
Okay.
Okay.
Can we do group 2?
We can group 2, which one you
I don't know
were,
which one it was.
Okay, let's take each one.
I read them, and they were fine, but I can't remember which one was.
It's a draft.
so can you,
I'll abstain.
okay,
Figure
all right, so we can
Okay.
take them all together.
All right.
Okay.
Make a motion to accept the minutes of May 16th, 2019. What was it, 2018, wasn't it?
May
No, they're all 19?
19.
June 7th, 2019, and one June 20th, 2019.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, so we are 5-0-1. Or is, well, Brenda's not,
5-0-0, she abstained,
502.
you're the abstain.
and she's gonna abstain. She didn't.
Is she abstaining, or is she just not,
Just
she's
not
just not
part of the
voting at
vote.
all? So it's 5-0-1. Right, okay. All right, Liz, can you let us know where we stand with minutes now that these 3 are done?
These 3 are done, so we have kind of the spring minutes. So we're done with the spring pretty much, and so now we just have the summer minutes. So we have the 2 in July and August. So I'll do July, August, 1st, and September at the next meeting. So hopefully we should be able to be caught up. I'm going to make sure that we're done with minutes by the December meeting. Caught up. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll never be done, because we
We'll
have
never
to
be
keep doing
done,
them.
but we're going to be caught up. We're going to start out on a new leaf in 2020, free and clear, new minutes, new day. It's going to be
Okay.
great.
You're making a lot of promises.
I know, I've got it
We
under
have
control.
Dawn now, so-
Dawn's
okay,
amazing, so we're good.
Yes.
All right, well,
Mike has a question.
As I've learned with the Airbnb subcommittee, the subcommittee minutes also have to be done. Do we
Right.
plan for those?
That's something that I've also been discussing with staff, because that was sort of a new revelation. And what Kristen and I have discussed with Amy as well, I think you've discussed with Amy, and is that we will do subcommittee meeting notes for any projects that are currently open and from here forward.
Okay.
But we will not be going backwards on projects that have already been completed, because it's just would be
Yeah, and
overwhelming.
I mean, I have
And we'd
been-
also be making stuff up.
I
So-
have been digitizing notes because I take, I do notes like this. So I've been doing, we have kind of a helper in because we're short-staffed. And so she's been helping digitize some of the notes.
Okay.
So, and those are subcommittee meetings that I was
Right.
able to attend. I wasn't at all of them. So I'm trying to
Right.
piecemeal what I have. Everything's by date, so it's not that bad. But we're going to try
Right.
and get those covered as best I can. I can't promise 100%.
Only the ones that are current. And moving forward, when we have subcommittee meetings, when staff is not present, it's going to be on us to take notes and write up meeting minutes. Yes, Ernie?
As far as approval of the subcommittee meeting, minutes, who approves them? Subcommittee or all of us?
I think would have to be the subcommittee because
That's what I thought.
the
Okay.
rest of us were not present.
It's the, I think it's the body for
Yes.
which the minutes are taken.
So I guess with the
Thank you.
subcommittee we created tonight, we have to make sure that someone takes
Yes,
minutes.
yes.
In those
And-
meetings, I
and-
learned have to be
Yes,
advertised.
even though, they are.
Yeah, they all are.
Well, no, ours weren't. but-
Oh, because, well, if there's only two of you, they don't have to be advertised.
Oh, you have to have a
Yeah.
We'll talk about this.
Amy,
Okay.
well, it
Yes.
depends on who
Yeah.
listens.
Okay.
I know how to do it now, so.
All right,
Mike,
so,
take the chairmanship and then you can designate, designate the other person to take the
I can't even
minutes.
take minutes.
couple of other things.
It needs to be advertised as a meeting, not a planning board meeting.
Okay, so a couple of other
Yes.
things that we have on our list for discussion items. I've been talking to staff, who has also been talking to building, about a new protocol for us to follow when we see things around town that are wrong, whether they are flashing lights, or umbrellas with ads on them, or light up signs, or whatever. So actually, because most of the time we're sending them to staff or people are sending them to me, but we don't actually have the authority to do anything about that. So Liz spoke with Andy Ungerson, who told us that what we should be doing with those concerns and the pictures is sending them to,
building@burlington.org. And that goes to the building department. Andy usually answers all of those questions, and he gets back to you. So building@burlington.org. If you want to CC planning@burlington.org,
that's fine.
that's fine. It's,
Right.
but it just, I talked to Andy, he said, oh, no, like, they should be emailing me. Why aren't they emailing me? So I had that conversation with him, and he's very open to it. And, does the building department have the bandwidth to go after every single thing? Not necessarily, but, as the inspector of buildings, he'll kind of be able to designate, and he'll be able to say, oh, hey, can you go out and grab all these signs, and, that
Right.
type of thing.
And this also, I mean, it's a separate conversation, but related, that it's something that we've been talking about a lot, I've been talking a lot about with staff, is that I believe that we have a need for an enforcement officer, and that's something that we need to work with building on, and hopefully can bring that to town meeting in the near future, because the building department can't possibly keep up with all of these violations, and yet, what good does it do if we put all of these strict conditions in place and then people ignore them with impunity? So hopefully, when we get to that point, I think that all of my fellow board members will support that effort. But in the meantime, we send them to building. We have asked that they keep a log, understanding that they will not be able to get to everything, but that we will trust them to triage them as they see fit.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I'd even waste my time then, so I'm done. If you can send a list and they may not get to them, because why bother doing it,
Because I think they'll triage them, and they'll get to the ones that are most important, and hopefully get to all of them eventually, especially when having the log and keeping track of all of these violations will bolster our argument for an enforcement officer.
So is there an opportunity for them to even just send a letter out? Is that within their bandwidth? Because that might go a long way, just to say.
I agree with you, and
Somebody doesn't have to go there and start to investigate, but just a quick letter. And then I'd be up for saying, hey, I'll shoot you.
Right.
If you're guaranteeing me there's a letter gonna go out, within a week, then at least the letter
Bill,
can.
we can't guarantee you that, because it's not our staff that does it.
No, I'm just asking if that's part of the
Yeah.
thing, because otherwise, I think I'm done kind of bringing that
We
to
are
you. Why waste
asking,
our time?
we've never had the ability to enforce. It's always been, so if you sent something to me or to Liz or whatever, we still had to send it to building.
Yeah.
We were just,
And it was ignored.
I don't think it's ignored.
Well, if it was triaged on stuff that's in the town center, you would think that'd be high priority.
Andy was he was very shocked. He was like, "Oh, I think he wants you to still.
give it a
I don't
try,
like that you say it's a waste of time. I think that he really does want to hear them, and he wants to do his best that he can.
Let me ask you
with
this,
his
when I
staff
sent
that
him
he
to
can.
staff, did you guys send him to the planning, the building
We
inspector?
tried the best that we could.
No, did you send what I sent you guys to him? So it would be
I
kind of.
think so.
So what's the difference?
Let's
Oh,
just
well,
give it a
Josh
try.
was doing it
All
too.
right.
Let's give it a try.
Yeah, give it
Well,
a try.
and- And I will say,
And if he, Andy will email you back too. If he says,
I don't need to be emailed back, right? Because I see the input and then it gets actioned. So I don't need the feedback. The feedback I see is gone.
yeah, well, I will say, one of you called last week with a concern that all of a sudden there was a lot of tree cutting in the residential buffer zone. And we went across the hallway and talked to the building department, and they were down there within a half an hour trying to figure out what was going on. So, I mean, they have been a lot more open to react, and I can't say, I mean, it was lucky we had people in the office and they could go down there and figure out what was going on and why people were cutting trees and why they were shooting. But they went down there, they took pictures, they documented it, they sent it to us, and then I was able to call one of you back to say, okay, this is what happened and this is the action we took. And I mean, it doesn't happen like that every single time, but I think they are very much trying to be as responsive as they can. So I don't want you all to be frustrated.
Well, that's why I thought it was important to ask for the log, because if they're logging these things, they may not get to them as quickly as we would like, but hopefully they'll get to them eventually. And again, that will help us when we put forward an argument that we need an enforcement officer. If we have a log that we're not able to get to.
To that point, the enforcement officer, at one time, we did have what they called a subdivision inspector. I don't know if you remember, Paul.
General Development Inspector.
General Development Inspector, name was Ernie Speck, I think, when Terry was here, maybe.
Yeah.
He went into it and for some reason, just kind of faded away. Once he resigned, he was a half-time that and a half-time.
It went to another person after
Is that what
him.
happened?
And then,
Okay.
no, and then they reconfigured the department.
Okay, so
it's just
if you
something-
want to look in the archives, you may have even more ammunition, is what
Okay,
I'm saying.
that's helpful, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would give Andy a chance, because the previous building inspector, I would go in and say, he said, in effect, don't bother me. He says, we're busy, we got a lot of things, and don't bother me with signs. So there was no opportunity that anything was going to get done. He said, look, we have to go, then we have to go to court and go back and forth and so forth. And he said, so we just don't bother with it. So I've known Andy for a long while, and I would give him a chance.
Well, and on the town center, when you guys have alerted us and we've alerted them, I know he has the opinion of, one flyaway sign is like the first dandelion in your yard. If you don't pluck the first one, you're going to get 100. So he does try to nip those things quickly, as quickly as he
Can
can.
we at least get the town center one nipped?
Yeah. We'll
A
try.
couple ones I've communicated, that one?
Okay.
Those.
Thank you, and I know it's frustrating, I feel your frustration, I share it, but unfortunately, I think this is the only recourse we have. We don't have the authority to do it ourselves, sadly. So the next item on the moving signs on the EV chargers, we need to send that to Andy. So if you could take care of that, Liz, that would be great.
Yep.
The third item that we have on our discussion list, I wanted to give you all an update from the Sculpture Park Committee. Things have been moving along very well. I'm very excited about how it's going. The Sculpture Park Committee Chair, John Sachs, appeared before the Board of Selectmen this past Monday. And while nothing was finalized, I would say it was a very positive meeting, and he received a positive response from the Board of Selectmen. And they have tentatively given us the green light to move forward with with a first step, I guess we could call it. And we're looking to probably install somewhere between 4 or 5 sculptures in the field in between Grandview and the police station. That's going to be sort of our first step. We still hope that it will expand from there. but we do expect for our call to entries, for entries to go out probably next week. And then that will be open until mid-January. Then the subcommittee will be making selections, which we will then present to the Board of Selectmen, who felt that they didn't, and I understand, didn't feel they could greenlight something without even taking a look at it. We don't expect it's going to be a problem because we have it very clearly stated in our call for entries that we want things that are family-friendly and non-controversial and non-political, et cetera. So the process is moving along very quickly. Our goal is to try and have something go live in June or July of next year. So we're very excited about it. We also are working on fundraising. We have some funds from Nordblum, as you all know. Nordblum has been very generous. I think you all will recall that they had pledged a certain amount of money for a sculpture outside their own, on their own property outside of Lifetime Fitness. They have since told us that they will install the sculpture there on their own and allow us to keep the money for the sculpture park project, which I think is very generous, and hopefully other members of the community will follow in their footsteps and also contribute to our cause. But I think it's going to be a really great thing for Burlington, and I'm very excited about it.
And the sculpture that they're putting in front of Lifetime Fitness is something that the sculpture committee has decided on what it is?
It hasn't even,
Okay.
no, it hasn't been decided yet. They are going to handle that submission process, but they do want involvement from the Sculpture Park Committee because they're now paying for it themselves and installing it themselves, but we'll be involved in helping them.
So if anybody pays for it, then they get to say what it is? Or how was that decision written
The
up
way
with that?
the way that happened is we wanted something there. I can't remember who suggested the sculpture. They asked for the subcommittee to choose the sculpture
Yeah.
because they didn't want to,
Yeah.
perhaps offend someone. So
It's okay.
I think now they want to be more involved in the process of putting out to a bid for the sculpture. They still want the Sculpture Park Committee involved in selecting, but they're going to take a more active role. And one of the reasons they are doing that is because they are also considering expanding and putting more sculpture in their own park in other areas. So to beautify their own park and to activate it and make it more interesting and exciting. So there's something that they're kind of taking this idea and running with it a little bit. So I think that's great. So they do understand the parameters for that particular piece, that it has to be appreciable from a car, that it can't be moving or distracting to drivers, and of course it has to be, something that would be enjoyed by all and not be offensive or political or controversial.
So we would have, so if it's on their own property, then they could put anything they want, like I think there's something in the news recently that there was a sculpture there that someone had there on their own property, and it was some sort of indication to the government, if you remember, something like that.
Whether or not, you mean in different locations within their park?
Right.
Could we have control over any art they installed? I don't know the answer to that. I
think the
do
answer
know
is
that
no.
they have expressed very clearly that it is their intention to avoid political or controversial sculpture or artwork of any kind, which is the intention of the Sculpture Park Committee as well. I don't know the answer to that question.
I think it was.
What would we do if someone did install
I think
something
it was a court
offensive?
case, right, just recently, where there was
Talking about the Supreme Court.
political type of, it was
Supreme
something,
Court case about signs.
it was a sculpture that somebody put in there because the town, it was
On
more of a
private
gesture,
property?
if you,
Was it on private property?
private property, right,
Okay.
and I
What
don't think
happened?
the town could do anything about
Was
that.
it just the
okay.
hand?
Remember that? I think it was a hand gesture.
Okay.
You guys remember that?
I did not see it.
I don't think they could do anything at all.
Right.
in
So maybe,
Westford?
is there anything in our bylaws? Is there anything?
So, from
You
what
guys are
you're
starting to get
telling
it
us,
now.
we can't stop them, but I actually don't really think that we have to worry about Nordblum doing
Well, no,
that.
I'm not saying, and that's why when I look a little bit higher up maybe than most folks,
So you
then.
can
so-
put whatever you want in your front yard.
That's what I'm saying, right, so.
That's right.
So is there anything in our bylaws with regard to art or sculptures and things like that, that it has to go through the sculpture committee?
No, there
Okay.
is not.
Should it, and is it allowable, because like you said, if you
I'm
do
not
it
sure
on
if
your
it's
personal
legal for
property,
us
right.
to tell people.
Well, you can't put a structure in your front yard, other, so, and anything really, it's permanently affixed to the ground is a structure, so.
Okay.
In your front yard, but does that mean any property,
You could put it in your
commercial,
backyard.
industrial? Does that just apply to commercial industrial
holiday
as well? You can
No,
put-
no, that's a little different. So, I mean,
So-
industrial, you can go to the lot line, so.
That's right. Okay,
Okay,
so.
thank you.
Just comment
So that's
on
the
that,
up-
Chair. There was one of the meetings when Bob Buckley was there, and there was a discussion about the Middlesex Turnpike sculpture. And there was just, he said in talking with Todd, if there was a sculpture that had, could any way be
That's why Ed was trying to get out of here.
respectful or about high-tech or whatever, that would be nice. He didn't say it was a requirement, but, there's all kinds of stuff that they have that might even, make an appropriate sculpture with
Yes.
what they're making in there now and so
Yes,
forth.
it's
Yeah.
my understanding, actually, from what Todd has said, that the Nordblum family is very much involved in the arts and is excited about this, and they have an extensive art collection and are art enthusiasts, and so they're kind of taking this idea and running with it. I think it's great.
Thank you.
Jonathan's plan, it's very ambitious. He wants a sculpture walk. That's what he's talking about already.
Right. We only
I said,
got
"Let's do
approval for a
one."
few to start with. We're going to start with a few, and we'll see what happens. But, our hope is that the first installation will be very well-received, and that people will love it, and then there will be more support to
Right.
expand.
Right, sounds good.
So,
Uh,
starting
one-
small,
One item?
of course.
We seem to be getting a lot of, yeah, I'm gonna move fast. We seem to be getting a lot of cell phone stuff,
Yes.
telecommunication stuff. And I think that maybe that you might want to think about appointing a standing subcommittee.
Well, actually, I've
Or
been
is there one?
speaking with Kristen.
Okay.
Why don't you address what you were telling me the other day about wanting to get some expert advice on this subject? Or are you not ready to discuss that?
Okay, yeah.
I'm not ready to discuss.
We can discuss
the
that
full-
offline.
the
Good
full
thought, Ernie.
Fine.
No, but I'm not, but,
Okay.
hold on. Not prepared to discuss the full extent of kind of some just background and compliance things I'm talking about. But we always have had like a wireless telecommunications standing subcommittee. Yeah, it's been on our list of
Okay.
standing committees, so yes, I agree, I'm not quite ready to talk about that at this point, but if you did want to consider standing members of a wireless committee, that's something.
No, if you've already, it just, we're getting,
Well, no, if
we're
we had
getting
him, it
there.
was like Al Fay and Paul Rudd. I
Yeah.
mean, we needed new members, need new appointees.
Why don't we wait on that, and you can discuss with Kristen offline what we have in the works.
But it would be helpful as we move forward with wireless.
Yes,
just
we
like
will
talked
need to
about
do
small
that
stuff,
eventually.
To have a team from the
Yes.
planning board.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And we may need some funds eventually to, we did a
Yes,
wireless overlay
that's
quite a
part
while
of-
ago.
yes.
That's what you- okay.
Yes.
All right,
Okay,
fine.
all right, thank you. Anyone else have anything else? Okay, all right then.
We will discuss the sign.
Oh, that's right.
Also, that you should clarify what the vote was on the minutes, because I think you said 5-1
Okay, the vote on the minutes,
is what?
does Brenda have to abstain, or is she not?
If you're sitting at the table, you either
Okay.
abstain or recuse. and
Okay,
you
so
can't just
the
not
vote should have said, we should have said for that vote on the minutes, it should have been 502
On the minutes?
on the
But,
minutes.
but the vote on
Said you
the
can vote
Wegmans is definitely 600.
Yes,
Yeah, I believe
Yeah,
it.
Right?
it's not.
yes, I understand, we're just talking about minutes.
Vote even if you're not there.
Okay, so,
I wouldn't argue with that.
the other item that I just think we should all be aware of is that the Board of Selectmen put out an RFP for a sign for the shops at Simon's Park, which would go on town-owned property. That RFP was responded to by, as I understand it, one applicant. It has not been voted on by the Board of Selectmen at this time. I believe the planning board had weighed in earlier,
We did send a memo.
We sent a memo,
A couple months ago.
voicing our objection to any signage placed on town-owned property. but it's moving forward despite our objections. I don't know if there's really anything else that we can do at this point. We could send another letter, but I don't know if that makes sense or not. I don't know what the rest of the board thinks.
I'd like a clarification as to how that can happen. In other words, the sign is not allowed by law. So the Board of Selectmen said we will circumvent the law by allowing them to put it on town property? How does that, if it's not allowed by law, how is it allowed on town property if it's violating the law?
I don't understand it either. I don't know.
I don't really understand that. I want a clarification on that, because it doesn't really make sense to me.
I haven't been involved in the legal discussions. I know that council had advised that they needed to put an RFP out.
So, I mean, even when the school committee comes up and says we want a sign, we
It has
address
to
the
comply
sign,
with
right?
the
And that's
laws.
on the town property.
Right?
So if you allow a private entity, like my business, if I wanted to put a sign on the town common, I can do that?
You can request it.
Again, I haven't been fully involved, but according to what the RFP, and I know I sent the RFP to some of you who requested, that it was, the town has this area of right-of-way, and we are soliciting options for it. So
Right,
it's,
is
you know,
is it even allowed by law to allow a private entity to place their business sign on the town property to circumvent the law?
Center, too.
these are good questions that I think you should put in a memo to ask, or we can put in a memo to ask. I mean, we could ask council in response to the RFP, we have these questions.
Isn't that, I mean, is the town properties technically what, residentially zoned? What is the zoning on the town property? Has to be zoned.
Right-of-way is the right-of-way, the right-of-way is the road.
Right.
And
But
there's
it- but
regulations
the
within the
right.
road.
But
So there's,
Right, but the right-of-way is owned by somebody.
the
The
right,
underlying land is owned by somebody.
The town has it for
right,
right-of-way?
the
So
town
it's
and Norfolk
zoned, it's
has,
still got to be zoned, even though there's a right-of-way over the fee of the land.
well, in that sense, you'd have to go back to what it was before the road was laid out, and then it's whatever it was zoned or used for. When it's used as roadway, which
Well,
this,
it could never, town-owned property is not going to be business zoned, right? Or is it?
it depends on how the road was laid out. a
Well, no,
million
it
years
doesn't
ago.
depend on how the road was laid out. It depends on how the land is zoned. The land underneath is, you can lay a road out over anything, right? I mean, it's just
Right.
a road layout.
When it's
right? But
road,
it's the
it's
underlying
not,
zoning.
when it's road, it's not zoned. So it's when it's used as road.
Right.
It's not zoned.
But it's not
When you
being used as road.
abandon that use,
Well, so I
road,
guess that's the question.
then
is
it reverts
if
back
it's being
to,
used as a sign, is that a road use?
But isn't it more important that it's in the town center overlay? Even if it's roadway, it's still in the overlay district, and those signs aren't allowed in the overlay district.
I think you all have very interesting points, and I support you, and I'm not looking to argue back and forth about it.
It's baffling to me,
I agree, I'm just, I support
to say the least.
issue.
My number two issue that I would have is,
say there's
if
like-
that's allowed,
There's roadway
I would
rules,
love
and
to have
there's
my law office sign on the town common.
property rules.
So in essence, you want us to send you our questions?
So I think you've heard a couple of questions.
You know, it's,
Respond to the
I would also ask, it's
Too late.
closed.
If I had known,
I don't know where it was
I would've.
advertised, nobody
I don't
saw
know where it was
it, but,
evidently it's
so you
closed,
have.
I guess.
You have Joe's question, you have my question, I would add another question, that if it has not been approved, if it is approved, who, in terms of which entities or which individuals or which groups of individuals would have standing to appeal that decision?
Well, and the next question is this. So if it's truly in the road layout, you can't just place signs in the road layout. Right? I mean, it's laid out for the way that other ways and roads and ways would be used within the town of Burlington. That's what a road layout is. And that's not to put a mall sign in the middle of the right-of-way.
Well, that's the huge concern, is the repercussions. Why wouldn't the mall want to have a sign
Well, yeah,
on town property that,
Well,
that
right.
is somehow owned along Mall Road?
But the question
or
is,
at the corner?
the road layouts are spelled out by state law, what you can do within the road layout. It's spelled out within the Mass General laws. And I don't think there's anywhere in there that says that you can put a private mall sign within the road layout. Even if the town owns it. If it's truly within the road layout, and that's what you're telling me, I didn't realize that. I thought it was just a piece of land owned by the town. But if it's within the road layout, how can you place a private sign within a road layout? You can't. It's the state that designates what happens within the road layouts. If it's been designated as a road, if it's within the layout, right?
So these are all questions that we can pose to town council? Anyone else want to pile anything else in there?
How is the sign, is the sign allowed by law? Where was it advertised? Which groups have standing?
Is it
How
wi-
can you place a private sign within the road layout? Is there one I missed? You said you had one first.
So who can appeal it?
I have that.
We can
Well,
do
you-
it.
but in other words,
Town
so,
overlay.
so the question is
I
this,
did.
you can't, so in other words, they're supposedly leasing the property.
Yes.
How can you lease the property
How can
that's
you lease
within a road
roadway?
layout?
You can't lease roadway to somebody,
I,
can you?
I don't think that's allowed with the Mass General
Can you lease a piece
laws.
of roadway
I would question whether that,
someone?
yeah,
That's a big
to put a
question.
sign.
For
A
any
roadway-
reason, can you
well,
lease
no.
a piece of roadway?
Well, if, you shouldn't be able to lease it anyway, but but within the Mass General laws, it says it's to be used the way all other roadways are used within the state, with town of Burlington.
There was an action taken at town meeting about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, that relates to this whole area. I don't know if that was part of it.
Well, I didn't even realize it was within the road layout until
This
she just
is
said
not
that.
within the, because we had to transfer a little bit of property to DOT. This is beyond that. This is still within the Center Street original.
So it is definitely within the road layout.
It's within the road layout that the town of Burlington controls, not the piece that we put in Cambridge Street.
Well, the town of Burlington doesn't, once the road is accepted, it's accepted under the Mass General laws. It's accepted by the town of Burlington with the restrictions and regulations of the Mass General laws.
Right, but
The
I'm
Mass
just,
General
my
laws, I don't believe allows you to put a sign in the
my
road
point to
layout.
Ernie was it's not Cambridge, it's not part of what the Cambridge Street take.
Right, it's not the state, it's not the state.
Something that was done at town meeting, but that's not it, I
Right.
guess. Okay.
I mean, I'm just thinking as we go along, and I've never, I would be very
Well, as a
hard
former
pressed to believe-
selectman, I think you were probably the most versed on these roadway questions, so we appreciate your
All right,
feedback.
so you have a list. We're going to pose those questions to town council. Could you please CC me and anyone else who wants to be on that email to town council?
I mean, regardless of how disturbing it is that people are trying to circumvent the downtown laws, it's, that in and of itself is an issue, but I want to know the legality of it.
So do you want to copy selectmen on that too, just to let them know that we're asking these questions to town council?
Yeah,
Well, yes, we'll copy them,
Yeah.
but they always know when we communicate with
Okay.
town council anyway.
yeah,
Yeah.
they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will, on behalf of the planning board, we'll be happy to ask those questions, and we too have very similar questions.
Okay, thank you. All right, anything else anyone needs to bring up?
No.
Okay.
Motion to
Did we lose
close.
Paul?
Seconded.
Oh,
Adjourn.
Adjourn, that's what I meant.
Second.
okay.
Second.
Motion to close.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 6-0.